Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
The embroidered uniform guards were bound to shock the entire imperial city tonight. It had only been a few days since His Majesty the Emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom passed down the decree to establish the embroidered uniform guard, and the embroidered uniform guard had already killed the city guard army's commander, Xue Lu. The actions of the embroidered uniform guard caused many people in the imperial city to tremble with fear, and practically all these people had grudges with Duanling Tian. Third Prince's estate. Bang! Within the building at the center of the lake, the expression of Third Prince, who just received a report from his servant, went gloomy. He threw the wine cup in his hand to shatter on the ground, causing some of the young geniuses to be unable to restrain themselves from shaking with fright. Everyone, the gathering today is over. We'll gather again another time. Third Prince took a deep breath and spoke to see off his guests. After all the young geniuses present left, Third Prince's eyes flashed with an awe-inspiring coldness. Since I'm already like fire and water with him, then I don't have to hold back. I must destroy his arrogant air. Go make preparations. I want to enter the palace and see my imperial father first thing tomorrow. Yes. The servant accepted the orders then left. Duanling Tian, do you really think that achieving a small meritorious service allows you to act in an unbridled manner? I really want to see how my imperial father will punish you. Third Prince's incomparably cold voice seemed like it came from the depths of hell. Fifth Prince's estate. Within the pergola, the white-browed old man was respectfully reporting to the Fifth Prince about the matter that was spread and gave rise to much discussion in the imperial city. What? Duanling Tian actually brought along his subordinate embroidered uniform guards and killed Xue Lu? Fifth Prince was startled by this news, then his face sank. He really hesitates for nothing and is unscrupulous. Your Highness, I heard that the one who carried out the deed was one of his subordinate embroidered uniform guards. That embroidered uniform guard ought to be in existence at the 9th level of the nascent soul stage. Slight fear was contained within the white-browed old man's tone. Looks like the Divine Might Marquis is still concerned about the friendship he had with Duan Rufeng all those years ago, and actually went to such great lengths to send a 9th level nascent soul stage martial artist for Duanling Tian to order about. Fifth Prince's eyes flickered with coldness, and his tone was depressed and low. Your Highness, what should we do now? The white-browed old man asked. The Fifth Prince flicked his sleeve and said, with cold and indifferent voice, Humph. Now we don't have to do anything. I'll go to the palace to see my imperial father tomorrow. This Duanling Tian's really too audacious, actually even daring to kill the city guard army's commander. Tomorrow, my imperial father will dismiss him from his post as the commander of the embroidered uniform guard. Your Highness is wise. The white-browed old man nodded. Prime Minister's estate. Gu Yuting sat before the stone table in the front courtyard as he savored the fragrant tea with a tranquil mind. Before long, a hurried figure whistled in and said, in a respectful voice, Lord Prime Minister, the commander of the embroidered uniform guard, Duanling Tian, took along his subordinate embroidered uniform guards and killed the city guard army commander, Xue Lu. Xue Lu? Gu Yutong brows raised. Just a boorish fellow, however. This Xue Lu's father isn't simple. As he muttered, a trace of a gloomy brilliance flashed within Gu Yuting's eyes. The next day, Duanling Tian had only just arrived at the embroidered uniform guard's residence when he was summoned into the imperial palace. It was still the same resplendent palace from before, and Duanling Tian walked in with large strides. He noticed that besides the emperor, who sat on the imperial throne, and Prime Minister Gu Yuting, who stood beside him, there still stood two people nearby. These two people weren't unfamiliar to Duanling Tian. Third Prince, Fifth Prince. Although he'd guessed that the emperor summoning him was about the matter from yesterday, he never thought that the Third Prince and the Fifth Prince, who were usually in conflict, would actually tacitly unite for the sake of him. Looks like his face was rather outstanding. Your Majesty. Duanling Tian looked at the emperor and lightly nodded. Presumptuous. Third Prince's and Fifth Prince's faces went gloomy as they berated. Presumptuous? Duanling Tian looked at the two of them and smiled indifferently. Princes, I wonder how I am presumptuous. Duan Ling Tian, you didn't kneel when you saw His Majesty the Emperor. Is this not presumptuous? Third Prince asked, in a deep voice. Not kneeling when you see His Majesty the Emperor is a crime of great disrespect. Duan Ling Tian, do you know your crime? The fifth prince added insult to injury. Duan Ling Tian didn't even pay any attention to what the two said and instead looked at the emperor. All right, you two brothers, that's enough. The emperor spoke out. Imperial father. The third prince and fifth prince were both stupefied and looked at the emperor with a puzzled expression. The emperor said indifferently, I've already promised Commander Duan that he's exempt from kneeling when he sees me in the future. You two don't have to make a fuss about nothing. Exempt from kneeling? Third prince's and fifth prince's pupils constricted, and they both had astounded expressions. They never imagined that their imperial father would treat Duan Ling Tian so generously. However, when they thought about Duan Ling Tian's deeds yesterday, their hearts calmed. As far as they were concerned, just the incident yesterday was sufficient to cause Duan Ling Tian to fall from heaven into hell and forever be unable to rise again. All right, now that Commander Duan is here, what do you two have to say? The emperor looked at third prince and fifth prince and asked indifferently. Imperial father, this Duan Ling Tian obtained your favor and was even conferred as the commander of the embroidered uniform guard by you. He should make an example of himself and serve my imperial family. But unexpectedly, at dawn yesterday, he actually lost all judgment to the point that he forced entry into the city guard army's campsite and killed Commander Xue Lu. Third prince had a face full of anger. Imperial father, Commander Xue Lu was a pillar of our kingdom. However, he died in the hands of this ignorant kid. I hope Imperial father will uphold justice for Commander Xue Lu. Yes, Imperial father. Duan Ling Tian killing Commander Xue Lu is a heinous crime. I hope that Imperial father will dismiss him from his post as commander of the embroidered uniform guard and heavily punish him as a warning against others. The fifth prince joined in and pleaded as well. From beginning till the end, Duan Ling Tian had a carefree expression, as if he didn't care about what was happening before him. And in actuality, Duan Ling Tian indeed didn't care about what was happening. As to him, this was all just a farce. Commander Duan, what's this about? The emperor's gaze descended onto Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian understood the moment he saw the emperor's calm gaze that the emperor absolutely didn't just find out about the matter, and probably had found out last night. Now he was just putting on an act before the third and fifth princes. The emperor's gaze seemed to have a trace of meaning mixed within. Duan Ling Tian saw through what this trace of meaning meant, and it was that the emperor hoped that Duan Ling Tian would give him a way to extricate himself. Although for the sake of him being the only one capable of refining the poison removal pill, it would be impossible for the emperor to punish him, but the emperor was the emperor after all, and he possessed supreme dignity. Now the emperor required a way to extricate himself. Your Majesty. Duan Ling Tian gave the emperor a gaze that said he understood, then slowly said, the differences between me and Xue Lu all arose because of his son, Xue Lang. I presume Your Majesty has heard of it. However, Your Majesty doesn't know that nearly 5 months ago, during the journey I followed the Crimson WYRM army to leave the Imperial City and head to the northwest border, someone wished to kill me. You can imagine how if that person was successful, then I'd be unable to cooperate with the Border Army and the Crimson WYRM army to capture the southern barbaric city and spread the might of my Crimson Sky Kingdom. Duan Ling Tian said, with a clear voice. There was still such an incident? The emperor's face sank. Do you know who it was? Duan Ling Tian nodded. This is exactly what I want to say next. That person was a member of the City Guard Army who was acting under the orders of the City Guard Army commander, Xue Lu, to sneak into the Crimson WYRM army with a desire to kill me on the way and take revenge for his son. Nonsense. Bullsh *T. Third prince and fifth prince spoke at almost the same instant. However, under the dignified gaze of the emperor, they both shut their mouths. Continue. The emperor looked at Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian nodded, Your Majesty, I know that the two princes suspect that what I speak of isn't true, But this matter is something Commander Xue Lu admitted himself yesterday at the City Guard Army campsite. I originally didn't intend to do anything to him and only wanted him to pay a small compensation. This isn't too much, right? However, that Xue Lu didn't appreciate my kindness. He threatened to kill me and the embroidered uniform guards under my command. All this is something the thousands of soldiers within the City Guard Army campsite heard with their own ears. If the two princes don't believe it, feel free to investigate. As Duanling Tian finished speaking, he looked at the third prince and fifth prince. Their faces instantly sank. Duanling Tian continued. In the end, for the sake of self-preservation, I could only order the embroidered uniform guards under my command to kill Xue Lu before he killed me. Otherwise, the one that died would have been me and my embroidered uniform guards. I hope your majesty understands. The emperor nodded. Imperial father. Right at this moment, a clear and melodious voice that was pleasing to the ear sounded. Then a drop-dead gorgeous figure walked swiftly over under the escort of palace maids. This was a young girl with a peerless appearance that caused one to be unable to restrain oneself from being lost within her beauty with just a glance. Princess Bai Yao. Duanling Tian was slightly surprised, as he'd never thought that he would meet Princess Bai Yao here. Bai Yao, you seem to be in such a hurry. Do you have some urgent matter? The emperor's face revealed a trace of amiableness when he saw Bai Yao. This was something that wasn't present when he faced third prince and fifth prince, and it was sufficient to show how much he doted upon this daughter of his. Imperial father, I heard you're going to punish Commander Duan, right? Imperial father, can you not punish Commander Duan? He wouldn't kill another without a reason. Princess Bai Yao was slightly short of breath as she spoke. Instantly, everyone present was stunned. As no one had expected that Princess Bai Yao coming over in such a hurry was actually to plead on behalf of Duanling Tian. Third prince and fifth prince's expression was incomparably gloomy. As for the emperor, he glanced at Duanling Tian deeply. As he was an experienced person, he was able to discern that his daughter ought to have secretly fallen for this youth of similar age. Otherwise, she wouldn't have forcefully entered the throne room. Bai Yao, who said that Imperial Father is going to punish Commander Duan? The emperor shook his head with a smile. Commander Duan's already explained earlier, he isn't in the wrong in this matter. It's the fault of the City Guard Army commander, Xue Lu. Xue Lu deserved death. Third prince and fifth prince knew that they'd wasted their time today when they heard what the emperor said. Princess Bai Yao's beautiful face flushed bright red when she heard what the emperor said, as she never thought that the outcome of her rushing over here would be like this. So it turned out that even if she didn't come, Duanling Tian would have been fine. For a moment, she was embarrassed to the point that she felt too ashamed to show her face. You too. The emperor's gaze quickly moved onto the third prince and fifth prince, and he said coldly, next time, don't disturb me before you've investigated the matter clearly. Yes. Third prince and fifth prince hurriedly lowered their heads and replied. At the instant they lowered their heads, their eyes flickered with dense killing intent. This killing intent was naturally directed at Duanling Tian. Third prince looked at the emperor and said respectfully, Imperial father, then I'll excuse myself. I'll excuse myself as well. Fifth prince left as well. The emperor's gaze descended onto Duanling Tian for a moment, then it descended onto Princess Bai Yao for a moment, constantly moving between the two. Duanling Tian was still fine and was able to stand there unfazed with a carefree expression. However, Princess Bai Yao's face was red with embarrassment. Imperial father, what are you looking at? Ha 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 ha. The emperor laughed heartily for a while before stopping. You two know each other? Princess Bai Yao nodded embarrassedly. The emperor looked at Duanling Tian and lightly smiled. Commander Duan, you seldom come to the palace. Since you're acquainted with Bai Yao, then accompany her to walk around. Yes, your majesty. Duanling Tian replied, before leaving the throne room with Princess Bai Yao. The palace maids behind Princess Bai Yao followed then as well. And Prime Minister Gu Yuting, who had been standing beside the emperor and hadn't spoken all the time, now had a slightly sunken face, and his eyes flickered with a dense, fierce light. He seemed like a fierce and malicious poisonous snake that was selecting its prey to swallow. Compared to before, Princess Baiyao was slightly awkward now. This was because she never thought that this youth she'd fallen for actually had such great ability. Now that she was walking with the youth that was always in her dreams, she was instead embarrassed to the point that she didn't know what to say. Duanling Tian felt the atmosphere to be slightly weird as well. After accompanying Princess Baiyao to walk for some time, Duanling Tian spoke first. "Princess, I still have matters to attend to. I'll be taking my leave first." "Okay." Princess Baiyao lightly nodded. Then she watched from afar as Duanling Tian left. Only then did she heave a sigh. After Duanling Tian left the imperial palace, he shook his head and sighed. Even he didn't know what sort of feelings he had towards Princess Baiyao. However, he could be sure about one thing. Princess Baiyao forcefully charging into the throne room to plead on behalf had made him feel slightly moved in his heart. Although she wasn't of any help, this intention of hers was extremely hard to come by. Phew! Duanling Tian let out a breath of air. Then he returned to that spacious courtyard house that was the embroidered uniform guard's residence. "Commander, the embroidered spring sabers you gave us, are they all grade 8 spirit weapons?" Duanling Tian had only just passed through the gate when he noticed Zhang Qian coming to greet him with an astonished expression. The gazes of the other 11 descended onto Duanling Tian as well. They never imagined that Duanling Tian would be so extravagant. "All of you only noticed now?" Duanling Tian smiled lightly. "Commander, you didn't have to go to such an expense to request a grade 8 weapons craftsman to refine all these spirit weapons. You spent quite a lot, right?" Zhao Gang said as well. "It's just some small toys I casually refined myself. I only spent some money on materials," Duanling Tian casually said. Instantly, all the 12 of them, including the half-step void stage old man, were dumbstruck. Their commander was a grade 8 weapons craftsman? According to their knowledge, this commander seemed to only be 19 in another 1 or 2 months. An 18-year-old grade 8 weapons craftsman. What sort of concept was that? "Commander, if my feeling isn't wrong, these grade 8 spirit weapons are all capable of providing an entire 20% amplification in strength, and are much better compared to spirit weapons refined by ordinary grade 8 weapons craftsmen." The old man that killed Commander Xue Lu yesterday couldn't refrain from saying. "Old Hong, you have a good eye." Duanling Tian lightly smiled as he nodded. This old man was precisely one of the 2 half-step void stage powerhouses that the senior marquis of the Divine Might Marquis estate sent to him. Now, the others were even more shocked when they heard the conversation between Duanling Tian and Old Hong. They all withdrew their embroidered spring sabers and seriously examined them for some time. And the result was they noticed that it was exactly as Old Hong said. They were capable of increasing an entire 20% of strength. They couldn't help but be moved. After all, an ordinary grade 8 spirit weapon would at most provide an amplification close to 20% of strength, and one that was capable of providing a 19% amplification can be considered to be top quality. The embroidered spring sabers in their hands would absolutely be capable of being considered as extremities amongst top-quality grade 8 spirit weapons. For a moment, a sense of reverence appeared within their gazes as they looked at Duanling Tian, an 18-year-old origin core martial artist and grade 8 weapons craftsman. But it was unknown what expressions they would have if they knew that Duanling Tian was also a grade 8 alchemist. In next to no time, Duanling Tian looked at Zhang Qian. "Zhang Qian, you and Zhao Gang go to all the large medicine stores within the imperial city and search for these few types of medicinal materials." Duanling Tian withdrew a brush and paper and wrote down a few types of medicinal materials and then passed the paper to Zhang Qian. "Mainly search their accounts from 3 years ago and see if they remember who they'd sold those medicinal materials to." These few medicinal materials were all the main medicinal materials for the poison that the emperor was infected with, and they were rarely used by anyone. Duanling Tian's goal was to find out who was the one that poisoned the emperor. Yes. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang received their orders and left. The imperial palace, outside a quiet and remote pavilion. "Prime Minister Gu?" A hollow voice seemed to echo out from all directions. The voice was gloomy and without the slightest shred of emotion. A black-clothed old man soundlessly appeared. Old Shui. Gu Yuting looked at the old man and lightly nodded. Prime Minister Gu, is there something you came looking for me for? The black-clothed old man had a pair of muddy eyes, and his entire person seemed to reveal a ghastly sense. Coupled with his gaunt body, he seemed as if he would fall from being blown by the wind. However, Gu Yuting instead knew that this old man's strength was extremely terrifying, at least not inferior to his. Gu Yuting sighed as he slowly said, Old Shui, you have my condolences. Prime Minister Gu, what do you mean by this? The ghastly aura on the old man seemed to become slightly deeper when he heard what Gu Yuting said. Old Shui, maybe you still don't know. Your grandson, Shuelang's Dantian, was crippled by another, and he lost his entire cultivation. Gu Yuting's eyes flickered as he said this. What? The black-clothed old man's muddy eyes instantly flickered with a dense, bright light, and a terrifying killing intent enveloped Gu Yuting. Prime Minister Gu, is what you're saying true? Yes. Gu Yuting nodded. Who did it? Did my son take revenge for Lang? The black-clothed old man's mood was slightly agitated. Old Shui, your son is dead. Gu Yuting laughed bitterly. The black-clothed old man didn't exclaim this time, but his gaunt body instead lightly trembled, and his voice was incomparably icy cold, as if it came from the depths of hell. Prime Minister Gu, do you know who did it? Old Shui, your son was precisely trying to take revenge for your grandson. However, in the end, he wasn't able to take revenge, and he himself was killed in retaliation. The person that crippled your grandson and killed your son is precisely the same person. Gu Yuting slowly said. Who is it? The black-clothed old man raised his eyebrows and stared in anger. He was furious to the utmost limit. The embroidered uniform guard commander, Duan Ling Tian. Gu Yuting slowly said, Old Shui, you should return and see your grandson. I'm truly worried that since your son is dead, that Duan Ling Tian will be ruthless to your grandson. He dares. The black-clothed old man shouted in a low voice, and mixed within his tone was a breathtaking icy coldness. Whoosh! Instantly, the black-clothed old man's figure trembled, and he vanished without a trace. Duan Ling Tian, I really want to see how you withstand this madman Shui's rage. The corners of Gu Yuting's mouth curled into a sneer from his plot being successful. On the main street of the Imperial City inner city, Duan Ling Tian spurred his horse to walk in the front, and behind him, 10 embroidered uniform guards followed close behind. The two old men were like two guardian deities, closely protecting Duan Ling Tian's sides. Everywhere the 11 passed, all the passers-by would move to the side in avoidance. It's the embroidered uniform guard. He's the embroidered uniform guard's commander, Duan Ling Tian? Oh my god. I even thought that the rumors were exaggerated. I never imagined Duan Ling Tian was really only a youth. The passers-by that crowded around to watch discussed in whispers amongst themselves. Duan Ling Tian naturally heard all these discussions, but he only shook his head and smiled and didn't take it to heart. There was no lack of similar discussions all the way, and he'd already become accustomed to it. Go! Right at this moment, a luxurious carriage approached straight at them with an extremely swift speed. Duan Ling Tian frowned. Move! The carriage driver was obviously extremely domineering, and he yelled as he swung the horse whip in his hand. The carriage driver's eyes obviously had a sense of ridicule mixed within his as he looked at the pedestrians that fled in disorder to both sides of the road. Before long, he noticed Duan Ling Tian's group. The carriage driver frowned, then he glanced at the standardized Valader robes that Duan Ling Tian's group wore. He was vaguely aware that these people might not be simple, so he panicked in his heart as he hurriedly tightened the reins. Halt! The carriage stopped at a distance, not even 3 meters from the horse under Duan Ling Tian. Ah fu, why did you stop? Right at this moment, a man's voice sounded from within the carriage. Third young master, there are a few army lords in front. Let's wait for them to pass first. The carriage driver looked at the youth who wore a Valader robe and was slightly unconfident. What army lords? A slightly impatient voice sounded out from within the carriage. Before long, the carriage's curtain was pulled open, and a young man stuck out his head. However, the young man's pupils couldn't help but constrict from this glance, and a sense of rage and sinister appearance appeared on his face when he saw the youth before him. "It's you." Duanling Tian was slightly stunned by the young man before him, suddenly shouting out in surprise at him. "Do I know him?" Duanling Tian carefully sized up the young man that stuck his head out from within the carriage, and the memories within his mind flashed by swiftly. In the end, an indistinct figure seemed to appear before his eyes, and it slowly merged with the person before him. 2 years ago, the scene outside Triumph City flashed within Duanling Tian's mind. At that time, he was hurrying on the road to Triumph City when he encountered a youth and young girl that regarded human lives as something as worthless grass. The youth and young girl both traveled on Fergana horses. That time, he'd intentionally avoided them at the side of the road. But unexpectedly, that young girl actually swung out her horse whip at him. He's taught the young girl a lesson, and the youth stood up for the young girl and attacked him. In the end, the youth's arm was severed by him. Only after that did Duanling Tian find out that the youth was Pei San, the third son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor. "It's you." Duanling Tian recalled that the young man before him was precisely the Pei San that he severed an arm off 2 years ago. No matter what, Duanling Tian had never thought that he would encounter Pei San again, moreover on the main street of the Imperial City's inner city. Everything in the world was truly inconstant. Thinking back to the time he was in a sorry state after he severed Pei San's arm, Duanling Tian suddenly felt as if he wasn't even in the same era anymore. He could still remember how he desperately spurred his horse to gallop madly to Triumph City just to escape chase from the powerhouse that followed by Pei San's side. He could imagine how if the powerhouse that followed by Pei San's side was able to catch up to him, the him of that time would have died for sure. Later on, even when he stayed in Triumph City for those few days, he still moved carefully every step of the way, as he was deeply afraid of being uncovered. The Pei San of that time was an extremely large threat to him, even to the extent that once he was found by Pei San would only need to say a word and his blood would splatter from a 3-foot-long blade, and he would die on the spot. Once, he was filled with fear towards Pei San's identity of being the son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor. However, now, Duanling Tian suddenly realized that when he encountered Pei San once again, besides being slightly surprised, he didn't feel anything else. Maybe now he stood at a different height. Or maybe it was too long ago. "I've finally found you." Pei San gnashed his teeth. Then he walked out of the carriage and looked at the youth on horseback with eyes filled with icy cold killing intent. Duanling Tian looked at Pei San with a calm expression. In the past, he might have been fearful of Pei San. But now, Pei San and he weren't on the same level, even to the extent that so long as he wanted it, he would only need to say a word and it would be sufficient to cause the Swallow Mountain County's county governor's estate that backed Pei San to change ownership. He was confident that so long as he told the Emperor would absolutely satisfy his request, even to the extent that he only needed to give an order and the embroidered uniform guards behind him would attack swiftly to make Pei San's blood splatter from a 3-foot-long blade, killing him on the spot. But he didn't act in such a way, and he didn't even have any thoughts of fussing about it with Pei San. "Third young master, what's wrong?" Right at this moment, 2 more people walked out in succession from within the carriage and stood behind Pei San. An old man and a young man. The old man was obviously in existence at the nascent soul stage. As for that young man, Li Qing, Duanling Tian couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice. The young man that presently stood behind Pei San wasn't anyone else but precisely Li Qing, who'd left the Li family years ago. He never imagined that after this Li Qing left the Li family, he'd actually get together with the Swallow Mountain County's county governor's estate's third young master. Everything in the world was truly inconstant. Only when he heard Duanling Tian's voice did Li Qing look towards Duanling Tian, and with only a single glance, his face abruptly went grim as he hurriedly said to Pei San, "Third young master, it was precisely this person that crippled your arm that day. It's him. It's him." "Blood enmity? Do you think I still need you to tell me now?" Pei San slowly turned around and glanced at Li Qing. Then a sneer appeared on the corners of his mouth. So it turns out that Li Qing is your real name. No wonder I was unable to investigate your background throughout these 2 years. Li Qing, you're truly capable, and you truly concealed yourself so well. Third young master, I. Li Qing's gaze was complicated, and a bitter smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. I made a mistake and was found out in the end? Humph. I'll deal with you later. Pei San's voice was cold and indifferent, and his gaze then descended onto Duan Ling Tian. 2 years ago, you crippled my arm. Today, I'll make you repay it with interest. Oh. Duan Ling Tian asked indifferently, how will you make me repay it with interest? I'll take your life. Pei San's voice was filled with hatred and ruthlessness. Presumptuous. The face of the 2 old men in Valader robes beside Duan Ling Tian sank, and they shouted out in unison. Pei San frowned. Only now did he realize that the youth before him wasn't alone, and the gaze with which he looked at Duan Ling Tian went even colder. What? You think that I, Pei San, will be unable to touch you just because you have a few helpers? Pei San. Duan Ling Tian's gaze descended onto Pei San, and he said indifferently, you're the most clear of who provoked the matter outside Triumph City that year. Today, it can considered to be fate that we're able to meet again. I don't want to fuss about the matter from that year with you, so let's call it off right now. It had already been 2 years. Moreover, he didn't suffer a loss that year, so Duan Ling Tian didn't want to fuss over it anymore. Now, Pei San wasn't on the same level as him anymore, thus he didn't intend on playing the bully. Just let everything from the past be blown away by the wind. However, this was only Duan Ling Tian's wishful thinking. The corners of Pei San's mouth curled into a sneer when he heard what Duan Ling Tian said. You speaking like this, is it because you're afraid? Over these 2 years, there hasn't been a moment that I forgot the scene of you severing my arm. I wish for nothing more than to tear your corpse into thousands of pieces, then burn your bones and scatter your ashes. Only like this will I be able to vent the hatred in my heart. It's too late to regret now. That year, if you had obediently suffered a whip from my little sister Ru, the following events wouldn't have occurred. So, even after you die today, it can only be blamed on you being too arrogant that year. You didn't know who you could or couldn't offend. I, the son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, am an existence that a commoner like you is unable to offend. As he finished speaking, Pei San's voice was filled with arrogance and ruthlessness. Li Qing stood behind Pei San, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile, as he felt that Duan Ling Tian would die on the spot today as well. Although he didn't know why Duan Ling Tian would appear in the Imperial City, as far as he was concerned, Duan Ling Tian would undoubtedly die from encountering him, who'd gone berserk. However, the expression of the old man behind Pei San was slightly unnatural. He noticed that after his young master said all this, the passers-by that had stopped to spectate from the sides of the road all had expressions of disdain. Son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governor? Calling the embroidered uniform guards commander, Duan Ling Tian, who is currently bathing in the limelight, a commoner? An amusing feeling arose within the hearts of the passers-by present. At this moment, they even forgot to whisper in discussion amongst themselves, as they focused their attention to see the development of the matter. But their gazes when they looked at Pei San had traces of mischievous laughs jumping within. Pei San extended his hand to point at Duan Ling Tian, and his gaze was filled with a bloodthirsty killing intent as he shouted fiercely, "Grandpa Huai, I want him dead." However, Pei San quickly noticed that the old man behind him remained unmoved, as if he hadn't heard what Pei San had said. Grandpa Huai. Pei San was stupefied, and he turned around to look at the old man behind him. Only Yo noticed that the old man's gaze was staring fixedly at the waist of the youth that sat atop the tall horse, and his gaze followed on to descend there. This glance nearly frightened him out of his wits. Embroidered uniform guard. He had arrived at the Imperial City yesterday and had stayed the night at the Outer City. In the Outer City's restaurant, he'd heard of the rumors about the Embroidered Uniform Guard and knew that the Embroidered Uniform Guard was the most terrifying and the most arrogant and domineering organization within the Imperial City currently. Allegedly, the commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard, Duan Ling Tian, was only 18 this year, but he had already deeply received the favor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's emperor and became the spokesman of the emperor. Even though he was far away at the Swallow Mountain County, he'd heard of Duanling Tian and knew that he was the #1 genius of Paladin Academy. He came to the Imperial City precisely because he intended to report to Paladin Academy. In his opinion, once he arrived at Paladin Academy, he might have a chance to meet this figure of legend. When he'd first heard of Duanling Tian a few months ago, he had a trace of yearning within his heart, as he was curious about what sort of figure that Duanling Tian was. When he arrived in the Imperial City and found out about Duanling Tian's military exploits in the Northwest Borders battlefield, admiration even arose from the depths of his heart. When he heard that Duanling Tian became the commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard, brought over 10+ embroidered uniform guards, and directly forced entry into the City Guard Army's campsite to kill the City Guard Army's commander, Xuelu, he felt his blood boil. For that moment on, he practically took Duanling Tian as his idol. However, now, you're that commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard, Duanling Tian? Pei San took a deep breath, and he looked at Duanling Tian while harboring the last trace of hope in his heart. At this moment, he hoped so dearly that Duanling Tian would deny it. What do you think? Duanling Tian looked at Pei San with a calm expression as he responded rhetorically. This son of the Swallow Mountain County's county governors finally recognized Commander Duan. What a joke! Actually threatening to tear Commander Duan's corpse into 1,000 pieces and then burn his bones and scatter his ashes. Humph! He's just the Swallow Mountain County's county governor's son. Even if the Swallow Mountain County's county governor personally came here today, he would still not dare be so presumptuous before Commander Duan. This Pei San is really courting death. This person had an expression of having gone through much bitterness and was thirsting for revenge earlier. But now he instead has a face full of terror and disbelief. That's normal. He's recognized Commander Duan now. After all, if he still dared to act like how he was earlier, then he'd really be an utter moron. The crowd of people that stood at the roadside to spectate discussed animatedly amongst themselves and didn't intentionally suppress their voices. Duan. Commander Duan? Pei San's body trembled and his face went ghastly pale. He was dumbstruck. He'd completely confirmed it. Never would he have imagined that the person he had a pressing need to kill these past 2 years was actually this Duanling Tian. The hatred within his heart completely crumbled at this moment, and all that was left was a sense of loss and helplessness. Exactly as the surrounding crowd had said, with Duanling Tian's current status and influence, not to mention him, even his father, the Swallow Mountain County's county governor, would have to treat Duanling Tian with respect. A trace of bitterness appeared on the face of the old man behind Pei San. This youth was the violet-clothed youth he'd chased into Triumph City that year? The youth had already climbed to such a height within a mere 2 years' time. A height that even he could only look up to. No, impossible, impossible. Li Qing stood behind Pei San and shook his head unceasingly, as he wasn't willing to believe all this was true. The Embroidered Uniform Guard's commander Duanling Tian? He's heard of the Duanling Tian whose name was spread and gave rise to much discussion within the Crimson Sky Kingdom these past few months. But he never linked the Duanling Tian of rumor to his sworn enemy, Duanling Tian. As far as he was concerned, his sworn enemy, Duanling Tian, was only a disciple with another surname from a branch family under Aurora City's Li clan. Whereas the peerless genius Duanling Tian, from the rumors, was instead a direct descendant of the Imperial City's Duan clan. In the past, he thought the two only possessed the same name. After all, the Crimson Sky Kingdom was so huge, and thus it wasn't strange for people with the same name to appear. At any rate, Li Qing had never imagined that the Duanling Tian, whose name was spread and gave rise to much discussion in the Crimson Sky Kingdom, and whose name now shook the entire Imperial City, was actually the Duanling Tian. He wished for nothing more than to kill and rejoice after he'd done the deed. The disciple with another surname from the branch family under the Aurora City Li clan and the Imperial City Duan clan's direct descendant disciple. They were actually the same person. Li Qing felt that this was absolutely the gods playing a joke on him, but when he tried to pinch his thigh, the pain that came from this thigh instead told him that all this was real. How can this be possible? It can't be. It can't be. Li Qing's face was ghastly pale, as the scene before him caused all his hopes to be blasted to pieces. He planned to rely on the Swallow Mountain County's county governor's estate to break through to the origin core stage, then return to the Li clan and kill Duanling Tian in revenge for his grandfather. But now, the thoughts that he'd persisted on for 2 years had instantly crumbled. Moreover, not to mention Duanling Tian, the fact that was the commander of the embroidered uniform guard currently, even if he wasn't, Duanling Tian was still in existence at the origin core stage, and the publicly acknowledged #1 genius of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's younger generation. He was far from being capable of comparing with Duanling Tian. Duanling Tian sat atop his horse, and his calm gaze flashed past Li Qing and Pei San. When he saw their current expressions, he didn't even have the slightest bit of thought to make a fuss about the matter with them. Humph! Duanling Tian's cold and indifferent gaze descended onto the carriage driver. Remember to slow down when you're driving within the Imperial City in the future. Yes, yes. The carriage driver nodded like a chick pecking on grain and didn't dare hesitate in the slightest. As he now knew the youth's identity and knew in his heart that if Duanling Tian wanted to kill him, it would be no different than stomping an ant to death. Let's go. Duanling Tian spurred on his horse to move forward with the 10 embroidered uniform guards behind him. Only after Duanling Tian's group disappeared at the end of the street did Pei San and the old man behind him recover from the shock. Blood enmity. No, I ought to call you Li Qing now. Pei San's gaze descended onto Li Qing, and a trace of icy coldness was faintly mixed within. As far as he was concerned, the reason why Duanling Tian had now slowly gotten further and further from him, even causing him to lose the hope of getting revenge, all of this was because of Li Qing. If it wasn't for Li Qing intentionally being mysterious that time, it would have been impossible for Duanling Tian to grow to this extent. Li Qing seemed as if he was jolted awake from a dream when he heard what Pei San said, and he instantly knelt on the ground. Third young master, spare me, spare me. Grandpa Huai. Pei San's voice revealed gloominess. Not good. Li Qing's heart jerked, and he hurriedly stood up, desiring to flee. However, he was only a martial artist that hadn't even stepped into the origin core stage. How could he possibly flee from the hands of a nascent soul martial artist? His skull was shattered by the old man with a palm strike in the blink of an eye, dead. Pei San took a deep breath after seeing Li Qing being killed and then returned into his carriage. He understood that even if he couldn't let it go, some enmity must have been buried deep within his heart. The current Duanling Tian was already someone that he couldn't deal with, and if he were to be impervious to reason, he would only be courting death. And it might even possibly implicate his father, the Swallow Mountain County's county governor. Duanling Tian was leading the group of embroidered uniform guards on the main street when his vigilant spiritual force suddenly noticed that something was off. In the shadows, a pair of gloomy eyes were staring at him. Moreover, this person's cultivation wasn't weak. He was even skilled at concealment. If it wasn't for Duanling Tian's heart being calm as water now, he might not have been able to notice. This is a powerhouse. Vigilance arose within Duanling Tian's heart, as relying on his spiritual force that was comparable to a nascent soul martial artist's, he was able to sense how terrifying the person was. The person was extremely likely to be a half-step void stage powerhouse. Let's return. Duanling Tian didn't become panic-stricken and called out to the 10 embroidered uniform guard behind him. Then he turned his horse around to head to the embroidered uniform guard's residence. On the way, Duanling Tian conversed with the 2 old men beside him in a low voice. Old Hong, Old Qin, don't panic no matter what I say next. Duanling Tian first gave the 2 old men a warning to stabilize them. Then he spoke of what he'd noticed and asked the 2 old men to take precautions. The 2 old men nodded in understanding. Before long, Duanling Tian's group returned to the embroidered uniform guard's residence, and under Duanling Tian's orders, the main gate of the spacious and large courtyard house was closed. And at almost the exact same time that Duanling Tian's group walked in, a figure silently leaped over the surrounding walls to lightly descend into the courtyard. Who? Instantly, the embroidered uniform guard that was right at the back noticed the old man. Duanling Tian wasn't surprised as he slowly turned around to look at the old man. The old man wore black clothes, a dense killing intent was revealed from between his brows, and his fierce gaze had precisely descended onto Duanling Tian. As expected, I'm his target. Duanling Tian thought inwardly, as he knew that this person was the one that was watching him from the shadows earlier. However, he was slightly curious. Who the heck was this old man? When this old man looked at him, it was as if the old man had seen a mortal enemy. Duanling Tian was sure that he didn't know this old man and had never once seen him before. You ought to be the embroidered uniform guard's Duanling Tian, right? The old man's gloomy gaze descended onto Duanling Tian. Instantly, besides Old Hong and Old Qin, the faces of all the other 8 embroidered uniform guards beside Duanling Tian went grim, and they moved to protect Duanling Tian behind them. Exactly, I'm Duanling Tian. I wonder who you are. Duanling Tian asked, with a tranquil gaze. Now he could almost be sure that this black-clothed old man was in existence at the half-step voice stage, and the old man's strength was extremely terrifying. Who am I? A trace of icy coldness appearance on the old man's face as he said, in a cold voice, I'm Shui Lu's father. Shui Yun. Instantly, the faces of Old Hong and Old Qin, who stood beside Duanling Tian, focused as they exclaimed in a low voice. What? You two know me? Shui Yun's gaze descended onto Old Qin and Old Hong's figures. Are you 2 members of the Divine Might Marquis estate? Old Hong and Old Qin looked at Shui Yun with tranquil expressions. Shui Yun? Duanling Tian couldn't help but recall that when he crippled the Dantina of Shuelang and that city guard commander Shui Lu waited at the Paladin Academy gate for him, the Duan clan's Grand Elder had once mentioned this name upon arrival. It was precisely Shui Lu's father. Now Duanling Tian came to a sudden understand. It's no wonder this black-clothed old man would look upon me with such hatred. So it turned out that the enmity between them had long since been planted deeply. Today, my target is Duanling Tian. I have no intention of making things difficult between me and the Divine Might Marquis. If all of you are sensible, then leave now. Otherwise, even at the hazard of offending the Divine Might Marquis estate, I will still make all of you be buried with Duanling Tian. Shui Yun's gaze went slightly cold as he said this in a deep voice. What high-sounding sentiments. That would depend if you have the ability. Old Hong and Old Qin took a step forward with gazes that were like swords, and a trace of fury was mixed within their tone. Okay, let me see what ability all of you have. As soon as he finished speaking, the black-clothed old man moved. Instantly, he seemed to have transformed into a bolt of black lightning that flashed straight towards Old Hong and Old Qin at an extremely swift speed. Moreover, above him, 1,500 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. He's a powerhouse who stepped into the half-step void stage as expected. Duanling Tian's gaze focused. Even a 9th-level nascent soul stage martial artist, exerting his full strength, would only possess the strength of 1,200 ancient mammoths. The first level of the void-prying stage did possess the strength of 2,000 ancient mammoths. Although this Shui Yun strength was inferior to a void-prying stage martial artist, it far surpassed a 9th-level nascent soul martial artist. Whoosh! Whoosh! Old Hong and Old Qin transformed into 2 bolts of lightning as well and moved to greet him in combat. Above Old Hong and Old Qin, there each appeared 1,500 ancient mammoth silhouettes. In terms of strength, anyone among Old Hong or Old Qin weren't inferior to Shui Yun. Moreover, Old Hong and Old Qin had both joined forces now and suppressed Shui Yun within a short moment. The 2 of them worked together perfectly. You two are the Divine Marquis Estate's Old Tiger and Old Crane? Shui Yun's face went gloomy when he guessed the identity of the 2 people that he was up against. Old Tiger and Old Crane? Duanling Tian couldn't help but be stupefied. Old Hong and Old Qin still had such nicknames? However, he discerned that when Old Hong attacked, it was indeed like a ferocious tiger, whereas when Old Qin attacked, it was like a graceful crane. Old Hong was adept in attacking, and he firmly suppressed Shui Yun. Old Qin was adept in movement techniques, and he caused Shui Yun to have nowhere to evade. I never imagined that the divine might marquee estate would go to such lengths, actually sending you two old tiger and old crane to follow this little bastard. Shui Yun's body moved to dodge to the side and his face sank. Since you two old tiger and old crane are here today, then I'll give you two-face. I'll come take this little bastard's life next time. As soon as he finished speaking, Shui Yun wanted to flee. Since you've come, then don't think of leaving. Old Exian spoke with a cold and indifferent voice. Then the white robe on his body fluttered as he flashed out. He seemed as if he had transformed into a swift, white crane that flew out to block Shui Yun's path in an instant. In terms of speed, Shui Yun had no hope of rivaling Old Qin. Meanwhile, Old Hong caught up in time and blocked Shui Yun's path from the front and back, causing him to have nowhere to flee. Old Tiger and Old Crane, you seem to have forgotten my identity. Shui Yun's face sank, as he knew very well that if it were to continue like this, it would be him who would die for sure. He extended out his hand to withdraw a command token, and atop the command token was the word Spectre engraved on it. I am a Spectre Guard under the command of His Majesty, the Mortal Emperor. If you two kill me, you will surely bring a great disaster upon the divine might marquee estate. His Majesty the Mortal Emperor? Spectre Guard? A trace of bewilderment appeared on Duanling Tian's face, as these two terms were so unfamiliar to him. Shui Yun, you think too highly of yourself? Old Hong's voice revealed a trace of disdain. His Majesty the Mortal Emperor would fall out with our divine might marquee estate for a mere Spectre Guard? What a joke. Shui Yun took a deep breath and said, in a deep voice, he might not have in the past, but don't you forget that your divine might marquee estate's senior marquis is infected with the poison of the dark nether mink and isn't the void-prying stage powerhouse he was. Then I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. In 3 months at most, the poison of the dark nether mink will be completely expelled from the senior marquis. Duanling Tian couldn't help but be amused when he heard what Shui Yun said. Did this Shui Yun really think that the divine might marquee estate's power had declined due to the senior marquis being poisoned? Little bastard, don't talk nonsense. Even a grade 6 alchemist can't do nothing against the poison of the dark nether mink. Who are you trying to bluff? Shui Yun's icy cold eyes flashed past Duanling Tian as he sneered. As far as he was concerned, Duanling Tian was only an ignorant youth. Duanling Tian didn't bother wasting his time on Shui Yun and said indifferently, Old Hong, Old Qin, you two ought to still remember what the senior marquis said to the two of you before you two left the divine might marquee estate with me, right? I don't care if he's a Spectre Guard. I want him dead, now. Duanling Tian spoke in a carefree manner, but within his voice, a dense killing intent was revealed. A half-step void stage powerhouse was too big of a threat to him. Moreover, the enmity between him and this half-step void stage powerhouse could be said to be absolutely irreconcilable. If Shui Yun didn't die, Duanling Tian's heart wouldn't be at peace. Yes, Commander. Old Hong and Old Qin nodded and directly attacked with full force. Humph! Shui Yu's face went grim, then a 3-foot-long blade appeared in his hand as soon as he raised it. Origin energy exploded out, causing the 3-foot-long blade to emit a burst of sword cries, and the number of ancient mammoth silhouettes above Shui Yun instantly rose to over 1,900. Obviously, this was a grade 7 spirit weapon. But was it only he who had a grade 7 spirit weapon? Old Hong and Old Qin respectively withdrew their own grade 7 spirit weapons, and over 1,900 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above them. The grade 7 spirit weapon in Old Hong's hand was a spear. The grade 7 spirit weapon in Old Qin's hand was a bone fan. Whoosh! Shui Yun attacked. The sword in his hand seemed to transform into a bolt of lightning as it tore through the sky and caused a piercing, whistling sound to echo out as it flashed straight for Old Qin. Perhaps as far as he was concerned, only by injuring Old Qin would he have any hope of escaping. Old Qin didn't dodge and raised his hand. The bone fan in his hand starting revolving faster and faster, emitting ear-piercing howls of wind that caused the surrounding air to stagnate. OM! Origin energy exploded out from the bone fan and actually revolved as it flashed out, aiming straight for Shui Yun's throat. Old Qin was fearless when faced with Shui Yun's sword strike, and he seemed more like he was waiting for Shui Yun's sword to flash over. Whoosh! At the critical moment, the spear in Old Hong's hand trembled and seemed like a flood dragon coming forth from its lair as it tore through the air and stopped Shui Yun's sword strike. No! Shui Yun fiercely shouted, and this would also be the last sound he emitted in this lifetime. His head was directly minced off by the revolving bone fan. Dead. The two halves of Shui Yun's body fell down with a crash, and his blood stained the ground. Meanwhile, Old Qin raised his hand and the bone fan returned to his hand. Then fan actually wasn't stained by the fresh blood in the slightest. So formidable. Duan Ling Tian's eyes squinted, and he was slightly surprised. At the same time, he was also shocked at Old Hong and Old Qing's teamwork. There was an extremely close tacit understanding between the two, and they trusted each other. Not only did Old Qin not dodge when faced with Shui Yun's sword strike, instead, he used that moment to execute his strongest attack and cause Shui Yun to be unable to defend against it. It was precisely because he trusted Old Hong that he dared do that. Moreover, Old Hong didn't let him down and promptly made a move to stop the sword strike that would have pierced through his chest. Duan Ling Tian believed that there probably weren't many half-step void stage powerhouses who could be a match to Old Hong and Old Qin when they joined forces. With Old Hong and Old Qin's strength, they're absolutely the trump card of the divine might marquee estate. I never imagined that Uncle Nya would lend them to me. A trace of warmth arose within Duan Ling Tian's heart. Moreover, the other 8 people that the divine might marquee sent to Duan Ling Tian didn't reveal any surprise. It was as if they already knew that Old Hong and Old Qin had such strength since a long time ago. Duan Ling Tian removed Shui Yun's spatial ring and then picked up the grade 7 spirit sword. Shui Yun's sword was completely jet black and revealed a sense of being simple and ancient. Whoosh! Duan Ling Tian's hand trembled and a black bolt of lightning flashed out. Then 39 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above Duan Ling Tian. 27% amplification. Not bad. It's better than the grade 8 spirit weapon I refined now. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart before putting away the fully jet black grade 7 spirit sword. Meanwhile, all of the embroidered uniform guards, including Old Hong and Old Qin, were dumbstruck. When utilizing a grade 7 spirit weapon, this commander of theirs was able to draw upon the energy of heaven and earth and develop 39 ancient mammoth silhouettes. A grade 7 spirit weapon amplified nearly 30% strength. In other words, even without a spirit weapon, he would still be capable of exerting the strength of 30 ancient mammoths. Second level of the Origin Core stage. They never thought that their commander had already broken through to the second level of the Origin Core stage. An 18-year-old second-level Origin Core martial artist. They felt their scalps go numb. After ordering the remaining embroidered uniform guards to bury Shui Yun's corpse, Duan Ling Tian called Old Hong and Old Qin. Then he walked into the rear courtyard. Duan Ling Tian looked at the 2 old men and asked curiously, Old Hong, Old Qin, earlier, the Spectre Guard and His Majesty the Mortal Emperor that Shui Yun mentioned. What are they exactly? Can you two explain it to me? Of course. Old Hong nodded, and his face went slightly serious. His Majesty the Mortal Emperor is called Mortal Emperor Chu, and he is the younger brother of the current emperor. He shares the same father but not mother with the emperor, and he is of the same generation as your father, Duan Ru Feng. That year, within the younger generation of the Crimson Sky Kingdom, his natural talent was only inferior to your father's. Later, Mortal Emperor Chu left the Crimson Sky Kingdom and went to wander around the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. When he returned over 10 years later, his cultivation had stepped into the void prying stage. At that time, the Imperial family's void prying stage powerhouse of the previous generation had just passed away, so he accepted the important task of protecting the Imperial family and became the Mortal Emperor that was concealed behind the scenes. As for the Spectre Guard, they're the servants at the Mortal Emperor's side. They total 9 people and are all half-step void stage powerhouses. Old Hong finished explaining in a single breath. Duan Ling Tian came to a sudden understanding. Mortal Emperor Chu. The Imperial family's void stage powerhouse. He deeply remembered it in his heart. Commander, The Marquis sent someone over to notify you to make a trip to the Divine Might Marquis estate. Right at this moment, a voice sounded out from the front courtyard. Duanling Tian, who was at the rear courtyard, heard it clearly, and he lightly smiled to the two old men. Old Sheen, Old Hong, come with me. Before long, Duanling Tian once again arrived at the Divine Might Marquis estate. Little Tian, the medicinal materials you wanted have been gathered. The Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan's face revealed a smile when he saw Duanling Tian's arrival. So fast? Duanling Tian was slightly surprised, as one of the main medicinal catalysts to refine the Grade 8 spirit cleansing pill was extremely hard to come by, after all. Even in the Imperial City, it was extremely rare. He never expected that his uncle Nya would already have gathered them all in only a few days. The secrets of the Divine Might Marquis estate were extraordinary as expected. Nye Yuan said with a smile. One of the medicinal materials among them was extremely rare. However, I just happened to know an alchemist who possessed it and asked him to transfer it to me. Duanling Tian nodded, and then went to the rear courtyard of the Divine Might Marquis estate with Nye Yuan. In next to no time, Duanling Tian withdrew his cauldron and condensed a Grade 8 pill fire. Then he started refining the Grade 8 spirit cleansing pill. Duanling Tian placed the entire pile of medicinal materials into the cauldron, and after spending 3 hours, slightly out of his expectations, he'd refined 7 Grade 8 spirit cleansing pills. Grandpa Nya, these are 3 Grade 8 spirit cleansing pills, and just like the last time, consume them separately over the course of 3 months. After 3 months, the toxic poison of the dark nether mink within your body will completely vanish. Duanling Tian put away 4 Grade 8 spirit cleansing pills and passed the other 3 to the old man. The old man directly consumed one, and his face revealed a carefree smile. Little Tian, it's all thanks to you. Duanling Tian shook his head and smiled. Grandpa Nya, don't mention it. If it wasn't for Old Hong and Old Sheen that you sent to me, I probably wouldn't have been able to see you again. If those 2 old men hadn't been present, it could be imagined how it would be impossible for Duanling Tian to survive Shui Yun. What happened? The old man's face sank when he heard this, and his pair of muddy eyes lit up with a bright light as killing intent shot out from within them. Little Tian, who's so bold to dare to touch you? Nye Yuan had a face full of rage as well. Grandpa Nya, Uncle Nya, don't worry, he's already dead. That person was called Shui Yun, and he seemed to be the father of the City Guard Army's commander, Shui Lu, Duanling Tian slowly said. Shui Yun? According to my knowledge, he's a specter guard, however, serves him right that he's dead, because he dared touch you. The old man's face had a casual expression. It was as if he didn't take Shui Yun's death to heart in the slightest. Nye Yuan was almost the same. Uncle Nya, you haven't consumed the Monkey King wine? Duanling Tian looked at Nye Yuan and changed the topic. I intend to consume it in another few days. At that time, I'll temporarily leave the Imperial City and find a place to greet the 6-9 lightning tribulation. Nye Yuan lightly smiled. Duanling Tian blinked his eyes and said, with a smile, looks like Uncle Nya is extremely confident in stepping into the void-prying stage in a short amount of time. Haha, if Uncle Nya steps into the void-prying stage, that would still be thanks to your contribution. If I didn't have your Monkey King wine, I don't know how long it would be before I'd be able to break through, even to the extent I might not be able to break through in my lifetime. As he finished speaking, Nye Yuan shook his head and sighed. Although he only needed one more step to reach the void-prying stage, many half-step void stage martial artists like him had appeared within the history of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. In the end, more than 90% among those martial artists weren't able to break through to the void-prying stage and just died of old age. If one wanted to step into the void-prying stage, then one must possess an extraordinary natural talent. Of course, it wasn't impossible for one with ordinary natural talent to break through to the void-prying stage. As long as one possessed a void advancement pill or other external sources of assistance, such as the Monkey King wine, one could still smoothly break through to the void-prying stage as well. Uncle Nya, you're exaggerating. Grandpa Nya was able to break through to the void-prying stage. How could you possibly have any problems? Duanling Tian shook his head and laughed. However, Nye Yuan hadn't spoken yet when the old man spoke first. Little Tian, There's something you don't know. Grandpa Nya was able to break through to the void prying stage because of the void advancement pill as well. If I didn't have the void advancement pill, then it would have probably been difficult for me to break through to the void prying stage in my lifetime. Duan Ling Tian was stunned, as he never thought that the old man had broken through to the void prying stage by relying on the void advancement pill. After leaving the Divine Might Marquis estate, Duan Ling Tian directly returned home and summoned Xiong Quan. Young master. Xiong Quan respectfully bowed to Duan Ling Tian. Xiong Quan, take this. Duan Ling Tian didn't waste time and directly withdrew 3 grade 8 spirit cleansing pills from his spatial ring and passed them to Xiong Quan. Young master, this is? Although Xiong Quan could vaguely guess what it was, he still couldn't help himself from asking for confirmation. Duan Ling Tian lightly smiled as he said, "These are grade 8 spirit cleansing pills. Consume them separately over 3 months, just like the previous grade 9 spirit cleansing pills. In 3 months, your cultivation will once again recover another 1/3, so you ought to be able to recover to the void prying stage." Xiong Quan's breathing became hurried when he heard this. His cultivation could finally recover to the void prying stage. All through this time, he'd always been depressed. He was in existence at the 6th level of the void prying stage, but now because of the origin sealing parasite, his cultivation suffered an extreme restriction. If he could recover to the void prying stage, even if it was only the 1st level of the void prying stage, it still far surpassed his current situation. After all, he had many formidable skills that could only be executed when relying upon the strength of the void prying stage. Subsequently, Duan Ling Tian spent half an hour and refined a medicinal pill that looked simple and dull right before Xiong Quan's eyes and passed it to him. Besides that, this is the antidote for the past half year. When he gave Xiong Quan the grade 9 spirit cleansing pill to consume that day, he'd mixed a special poison within. That poison was something even the spirit cleansing pill was helpless against. Xiong Quan had to consume the antidote every half year, or else he would undoubtedly die. This was also a method Duan Ling Tian used to control Xiong Quan. "Thank you, young master." Xiong Quan's gaze shone, and he hurriedly received it before consuming it. After sending Xiong Quan off, Duan Ling Tian went to the rear courtyard. Only now did he realize that the 2 little girls had both smoothly broken through to the origin core stage. Duan Ling Tian returned to his room after accompanying the 2 little girls for a while. After taking out a drop of Monkey King wine and consuming it, Duan Ling Tian started cultivating. This time, Duan Ling Tian noticed that the medicinal strength of the Monkey King wine was an entire 50% weaker than before. He circulated the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Techniques WYRM Python form mental cultivation, and in the end, Duan Ling Tian was only barely able to break through to the 2nd level of the origin core stage. Looks like the Monkey King wine and Monkey wine are similar. The effect from first consumption is much better, and the following consumption's effects are halved each time. The 2nd consumption is the half of the 1st consumption, and the 3rd consumption is the half of the 2nd consumption, so on and so forth. Later on, its effect makes no difference. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart, and he realized that if he stepped into the half-step void stage in the future and wanted to use the Monkey King wine to break through, consuming even more Monkey King wine would only be a waste. However, now that his cultivation had broken through to the 2nd level of the origin core stage, it allowed Duan Ling Tian to possess the strength of 41 ancient mammoths. Compared to an ordinary 2nd-level origin core martial artist, he possessed an extra strength of 11 ancient mammoths. Compared to an ordinary 3rd-level origin core martial artist, he possessed an extra strength of 1 ancient mammoth. That Shui Yun was a specter guard. Duan Ling Tian took out Shui Yun's spatial ring and dripped blood to establish ownership. Then he looked within and his eyes squinted. There's actually only 1 million or so silver here. This Shui Yun really hasn't been doing well. He was in existence at the half-step void stage and only had this much. As he finished speaking, Duan Ling Tian had a face full of dislike. At the gate of the 5th prince's estate, 5th prince looked at Tong Li and said, with a light smile, "Li, cousin will come see you at Fair Sun County when I'm free." Cousin? Tong Li's eyes were hazy and full of tears, and her face had a sense of unwillingness mixed within. Could it be that we really are helpless against that Duanling Tian? When she found out of Duanling Tian's current dominance, Tong Li's heart was filled with unwillingness and resentment. Li, don't worry. Once cousin conquers the throne, I'll surely capture that Duanling Tian and send him before you. I'll allow you to deal with him as you please, the fifth prince promised. Tong Li's expression eased up slightly when she heard what he said, and she fiercely nodded with a vicious gaze. Okay, at that time, I want a slice of his flesh piece by piece and see the last drop of blood bleed out from his body. Subsequently, Tong Li and the old woman beside her left the fifth prince's estate to return to Fair Sun County. Fifth prince brought along the white-browed old man and turned to return to the estate after Tong Li's carriage disappeared before his eyes. Li, don't worry. That old goat doesn't have long to live. On the way back to the estate, the fifth prince muttered to himself. Since killing Shuiyu, Duanling Tian's life slowly calmed down. The third prince and fifth prince seemed to have vanished from the world. The Prime Minister Gu Yuting seemed to have completely quieted down as well. Nowadays, besides occasionally going to the Paladin Academy, Duanling Tian would normally stay at home and accompany the two little girls and his mother. Occasionally, he would head to the embroidered uniform guard's residence to investigate who it was that poisoned the emperor. As time flowed by, he had more and more clues. Duanling Tian was confident that it wouldn't be long before he would be able to find out the truth and find the true culprit. Meanwhile, Duanling Tian had turned 19 and stepped into the ranks of young men, and the immaturity on his face completely vanished. Replacing it, he had sword-shaped eyebrows and starry eyes, and he was handsome and extraordinary with a graceful bearing. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed by. Within a spacious room, swoosh, the violet-clad young man abruptly opened his eyes, and above him, 51 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. I've finally broken through. Fortunately, the Monkey King wine and Monkey wine didn't clash with each other. Duanling Tian's face revealed a smile. Since he'd consumed the Monkey King wine for the second time and noticed that the effects weren't great, he didn't waste the Monkey King wine anymore and instead drank the monkey wine. As a result, he noticed that the medicinal strength of the monkey wine didn't weaken due to him having consumed the Monkey King wine. Relying on the medicinal strength of the monkey wine, and coupled with the assistance of the origin strengthening pill, he'd smoothly broken through to the third level of the Origin Core stage after 3 months. The Origin Strengthening Pill is the upgraded version of the Origin Increasing Pill, and it's also the medicinal pill that Origin Core martial artists cultivate with because it is able to increase their cultivation speed. Duanling Tian had refined quite a few of these over the past 3 months. They were all Origin Strengthening Pills of high purity and were far from something the Origin Strengthening Pills sold outside could compare to. The two little girls at home, Ku'er and Li Fei, both stepped into the second level of the Origin Core stage in succession after consuming the second drop of Monkey King wine. And their cultivations was something that only Duanling Tian could firmly surpass within the younger generation of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Of course, all this was only known to Duanling Tian, and outsiders didn't know of it in the slightest. Otherwise, it was unknown what sort of sensation it would give rise to. Duanling Tian, whose mood was elated after breaking through, went to Paladin Academy to look for Xiaoyu, Xiao Sun, and Tian who to have a meal together. Presently, Xiaoyu and the others had already become accustomed to Duanling Tian's skipping class. It made no difference to the current Duanling Tian if he skipped class or not, as his current status within the Crimson Sky Kingdom to a certain degree could already be considered as below one but above the rest, as there was no one above him but the Emperor. Perhaps within the Imperial City now, there were people who didn't know who the Prime Minister was, but there was practically no one that didn't know who the commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard was. The commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard, Duanling Tian, the spokesman of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's Emperor. In the eyes of the current Emperor, his status even surpassed Prime Minister Gu Yuting's. Right, now that I think of it, it's about time for this year's new students to enroll, right? We ought to be considered grade 2 students now, right? Duanling Tian asked. Duanling Tian, you're really slow. The new students already enrolled 2 days ago, and we've been promoted to grade 2 students. Tian, who shook his head and laughed. Even though Duan Ling Tian was the commander of the embroidered uniform guard now, they hadn't grown apart in the slightest. The friendship between him and Duan Ling Tian wouldn't change, just because the status of one of them changed. Xiao Sun looked at Duan Ling Tian and asked, Duan Ling Tian, do you have any plans? As far as he was concerned, Duan Ling Tian was only 19 and had already attained such achievements within the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Thus, within the Crimson Sky Kingdom, unless he rose in rebellion to seize the throne, it would be extremely difficult for him to stand at a higher height. In the Crimson Sky Kingdom, he practically stood at the peak. Duan Ling Tian lightly smiled. I naturally have a plan. However, everything will have to wait until after I've dealt with an unfinished matter. After I've dealt with the matter, perhaps I'll leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom and head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. According to what Duan Ling Tian found out from Xiong Quan, some of the sects within the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom were situated at places with beautiful scenery, and the origin energy there was abundant, thus being extremely beneficial to one's cultivation. Compared to an ordinary place of cultivation, the speed of cultivation there was much faster. And the speed of cultivation in some places was even double the speed of cultivation at an ordinary place. He could imagine how if he was able to cultivate in those places, combined with the high-purity origin strengthening pills in his possession, his cultivation would surely advance at high speeds. So he had already planned to enter one of the top sects within the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom just for the sake of an extremely good place of cultivation. However, no matter whether it was the Paladin Academy he was currently in, or the top sects in the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom that he would enter in the future, they were all just stepping stones for him. His aspirations weren't in the Crimson Sky Kingdom, not were his aspirations within the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. Xiao Yu, Xiao Sun, and Tian, who all had faces full of yearning when they heard what Duan Ling Tian said. After having a meal with the three of them, Duan Ling Tian left Paladin Academy and went to the embroidered uniform guard's residence with Xiong Quan. Xiong Quan's cultivation recovering to the void-prying stage was a huge help to him. Commander, our investigation has bore fruit. Duan Ling Tian had only just entered through the gates when he saw Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang coming over to greet him. It has? Duan Ling Tian's gaze shone. Who bought those medicinal materials? Zhang Qian took a few steps forward and closed the gate of the courtyard house. Only then did he come to Duan Ling Tian's side and say, in a low voice, Commander, it was someone from the 5th Prince's estate. 5th Prince's estate? Duan Ling Tian's eyes squinted. Are you sure? This isn't a joke. It's said that even a vicious tiger wouldn't eat its cubs, so a vicious tiger ought to not eat its father, right? Commander, we've caught the person that purchased the medicinal materials and confirmed it. Those medicinal materials were something the manager that followed beside the 5th Prince, White Brow One, asked him to buy, Zhao Gang added. Looks like this matter is related to the 5th Prince. I need to make a trip to the palace. Duan Ling Tian nodded and was slightly shocked in his heart. The 5th Prince was really extremely cruel and merciless, even being so ruthless towards his own father. Duan Ling Tian brought Xiong Quan along as he hurried into the palace to see the emperor. Commander Duan, is it because you have a lead that you came here in such a hurry? The emperor guessed Duan Ling Tian's reason for coming. Your Majesty, I really don't know how to speak about this matter. Duan Ling Tian had a face full of a bitter smile. Surely he couldn't directly tell the emperor, your son wants to kill you, right? Speak. The emperor's gaze was calm as he slowly spoke. Duan Ling Tian looked at the emperor. According to the clues from my investigation, everything points towards the 5th Prince. 5th Prince. The emperor's breathing became hurried when he heard what Duan Ling Tian said. Only after a long time did he take a deep breath and a trace of gloominess flashed within his eyes. Duan Ling Tian was gazing at the emperor, and he could clearly feel the rage within the emperor's heart. He could understand the emperor's current feelings. Commander Duan, the emperor spoke with an icy cold voice that revealed a coldness that was chilling to the bone. Your Majesty, Duan Ling Tian replied. Take the embroidered uniform guard under your command and bring that unfilial son here right now. I will summon the Prime Minister and Divine Might Marquis to enter the palace immediately. I want that unfilial son to be executed in this throne room as a warning to others." The Emperor's voice seemed to come from the depths of hell and was incomparably gloomy. He was completely enraged. Duanling Tian let out a breath of cold air. It was said that emperors were heartless, and today he could be considered to have completely experienced it. However, when he thought about the fifth prince's deeds, Duanling Tian came to an understanding. The fifth prince only had himself to blame. Yes. Duanling Tian received the orders and left the imperial palace with Xiong Quan. Then he gathered the 12 embroidered uniform guard under his command to directly head to the fifth prince's estate. When the guards at the fifth prince's estate's main gate saw Duanling Tian coming over with his subordinates, their faces all went pale. "Commander Duan." They recognized the embroidered uniform guard's Valada robes and respectfully bowed to Duanling Tian, not daring to block his path. Duanling Tian paid no attention to these guards and brought Xiong Quan and the 12 embroidered uniform guards to directly gallop their horses into the fifth prince's estate. "Duanling Tian, you're being presumptuous." Before long, the fifth prince came out, and behind him, the white-browed old man followed. Presumptuous? Duanling Tian's gaze focused as he looked at the fifth prince and indifferently said, "Fifth prince, this time I'm following the orders of His Majesty to invite you to the palace. So I hope fifth prince can cooperate." If my imperial father wanted to summon me, why would he need you to come here? Duanling Tian, what exactly do you want to do? The fifth prince's face sank, as he obviously didn't believe what Duanling Tian said. "Fifth prince, if you don't cooperate, then don't blame me for using force. Men, invite the fifth prince." As Duanling Tian finished speaking, he abruptly ordered with a voice that was like exploding thunder. Instantly, beside Xiong Quan, who was behind Duanling Tian, Old Hong, Old Qin, and the 10 embroidered uniform guards moved forward, wanting to capture the fifth prince. Presumptuous! The face of the white-browed old man behind the fifth prince sank as he shouted out explosively and protected the fifth prince behind him. "If anyone obstructs, kill them." Duanling Tian continued to order with a cold and indifferent voice. Instantly, the 10 embroidered uniform guards attacked, and their embroidered spring sabers whistled out with piercingly cold lights, as if transforming into poisonous snakes that bit towards the old man. The old man's figure trembled, and 1,200 ancient mammoth silhouettes appeared above him. A 9th-level nascent soul martial artist. However, even though he was a 9th-level nascent soul martial artist, before the tacit joint attack of 10 7th and 8th-level nascent soul martial artists, he didn't gain the slightest advantage, even to the extent he was in a slightly sorry state when being enveloped by the net of sabers from the combined attacks of the embroidered spring sabers. Right at this moment, a burst of whistling echoed out. It was precisely the fifth prince who blew it. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Instantly, incomparably swift figures flew over one after the other from all over the estate. These people were led by an old man. This old man wore azure clothes, and his movements brought along a shocking aura from his extraordinary cultivation. Behind the old man, another 5 old men followed close behind, and besides that there was another group of middle-aged men with frosty expressions following close behind the old man. These middle-aged men were precisely the death soldiers that the fifth prince trained, death soldiers that only lived for slaughter. The old man in the lead dashed out, and above him, 1,500 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form. Half-step void stage. Old Pooh, I want that Duanling Tian dead. The fifth prince's gaze shone when he saw the old man, and he abruptly ordered as if he was filled with confidence in the old man. "Don't worry, your highness, none of them will survive." The old man's voice spread out in the air, and he seemed to transform into a great rock as he enveloped Duanling Tian's location. "Xiong Quan, kill him." Duanling Tian's gaze was calm when faced with this half-step void stage powerhouse that was flying towards him, and he had a carefree expression. "Yes, young master." Xiong Quan's body moved at the moment he heard what Duanling Tian said. Whoosh! Along with an awe-inspiring sound of rushing wind was a clear and melodious sword howl. Then the sound stopped abruptly. Instantly, a pillar of eye-piercing blood bloomed from the throat of the old man that was approaching in fully fury. He'd only approached halfway when his head drooped and his entire body crashed onto the floor. His body was fiercely hurtled out by momentum and was completely devoid of signs of life. Dead. Besides Old Hong and Old Sheen, who spurred their horses to follow by Duan Ling Tian's side, no one present was able to see Xiong Quan's movements clearly. In their eyes, Xiong Quan had always been sitting on his horse and had never moved. Void prying stage. Old Hong and Old Sheen's hearts shook, as they never imagined that the middle-aged man that had been following the commander lately was actually a void prying stage powerhouse. Moreover, he seemed to not simply be a first-level void prying martial artist. They felt their scalps go numb. No. The fifth prince's pupils constricted when he saw this scene, and he wasn't willing to believe that all this was true. His biggest reliance, an existence at the half-step void stage, had died just like that? The other 5 old men that followed behind the half-step void stage old man now had stopped their footsteps and were all shocked to the point that they were dumbstruck. The white-browed old man's figure moved to avoid the joint attack of the group of embroidered uniform guards. Then he stood far away and was stunned for a moment. Only those death soldiers still pounced out to fight one after the other, but they all died beneath the embroidered spring sabers of the 10 embroidered uniform guards. Before long, blood flooded into a river at the front courtyard of the 5th prince's estate, and not a single death soldier remained standing. 5th prince, I hope you're able to cooperate. Duan Ling Tian's icy cold gaze swept past the white-browed old man and the other 5 old men that were dumbstruck. Then it finally descended onto the 5th prince. The 5th prince seemed to have been slightly driven out of his wits, and only when the 10 embroidered uniform guards surrounded him did he recover from his shock. Duan Ling Tian, you'll die for sure. The 5th prince looked at Duan Ling Tian and spoke with a voice that was filled with icy coldness. 5th prince, I've already said this before. I'm following the orders of His Majesty to invite you to the palace. Duan Ling Tian continued to speak. As for the 5th prince's threat, he didn't take it to heart. His Majesty? Has that old goat noticed something? The 5th prince's eyes flashed with a trace of viciousness as he said this in a deep voice. Old goat? Duan Ling Tian glanced deeply at the 5th prince. It looked like the 5th prince didn't respect the emperor in the slightest, because he had actually called the emperor an old goat. Take him. Duan Ling Tian turned his horse around and left the 5th prince's estate. He didn't notice that when the 5th prince was dragged onto the back of a horse by an embroidered uniform guard, the 5th prince had made an eye signal to the white-browed old man. And the white-browed old man nodded with a serious expression. After Duan Ling Tian took the 5th prince away, the white-browed old man left the 5th prince's estate at the first possible moment and flashed straight for the imperial palace. In terms of speed, he far surpassed Duan Ling Tian's group that was on horseback. When Duan Ling Tian arrived at the throne room with the 5th prince, he noticed that besides the emperor, there were quite a few people present. Besides Divine Might Marquis Nie Yuan and Prime Minister Gu Yuting, the senior marquis of the Divine Might Marquis estate had actually come as well, and he was now seated nearby. He was obviously given a seat by the emperor. Duan Ling Tian brought Xiong Quan and the 12 embroidered uniform guards to enter the throne room in swift strides. Imperial Father. The 5th prince seemed as if he'd seen his savior when he saw the emperor, and he knelt on the ground. This Duan Ling Tian is reckless and impudent enough to actually dare to forcefully enter my estate and kill my subordinates. Imperial Father, you must give justice to your son. The emperor's gaze was slightly cold as he said, in a deep voice, It was I who asked Commander Duan to capture you. What? You have an objection? The 5th prince looked at the emperor as he asked, Imperial Father, I wonder what I've done wrong? What you've done. You're clear of it in your heart. Could it be that you want me to personally tell you? The emperor's face sank, and his eyes revealed a sense of gloominess. Imperial Father, you must not listen to the slanderous talk of that vile person. This Duan Ling Tian and I have personal grudges. He's framing me. The 5th prince hurriedly said. Framing? The emperor sneered. Do you really think I'm a self-indulgent ruler? I'd once suspected you, but then I thought that you're my own son after all, so I convinced myself and didn't suspect you again. But unexpectedly, now that the truth has been revealed, it really was you. My own good son. Imperial father, I don't know what you're talking about. The fifth prince pretended to be confused. Right when the emperor's face sank and he was about angrily rebuke the fifth prince, a calm voice sounded from outside the throne room. Soon, in next to no time, a white-clothed middle-aged man slowly walked in. His speed looked to be slow, but in the blink of an eye, he arrived within the audience hall. Meanwhile, another person followed behind him. It was precisely the white-browed old man from the fifth prince's estate. Your Majesty, the mortal emperor. For a moment, Nie Yuan and Gu Yuting looked at the person who'd arrived and slightly bowed. Duan Ling Tian's brows raised. Mortal emperor? He's the mortal emperor Chu? The imperial family's formidable void stage powerhouse? Fourth imperial brother? The emperor's enraged expression slightly eased up when he noticed the arrival of mortal emperor Chu. Why have you come? Imperial brother, I heard you want to punish Sun. The mortal emperor Chu looked at the emperor with a pair of calm eyes that flashed with a grave intent to kill. But it was caught by Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian's heart jerked, as he suddenly felt that the arrival of the mortal emperor Chu would probably not be so simple. The emperor took a deep breath and said, with a hurried tone, Fourth imperial brother, there's something you don't know. This unfilial son actually dared to poison me, his father. Tell me, does an unfilial son like this deserve death? He was incomparably agitated. Unfilial son? The mortal Emperor Chu's dignified brows raised as he said indifferently, then if he is an imperial brother's son? Fourth imperial brother, what do you mean by this? The emperor's face went slightly grim as his fierce gaze descended onto mortal Emperor Chu. Sun, tell him. Mortal Emperor Chu looked at the emperor with a calm gaze as he spoke indifferently. Meanwhile, the fifth prince, Chu Sun, directly stood up and respectfully bowed to mortal Emperor Chu. Yes, imperial father. Silence. Along with Chu Sun's voice, the entire scene was deathly silent. The fifth prince addressed mortal Emperor Chu as imperial father? What was actually going on? Besides Duan Lingtian and Xiong Quan, who could still stay calm, the faces of the other people present changed. As expected, Duan Lingtian's eyes focused as he came to a sudden understanding. When mortal Emperor Chu appeared, Duan Lingtian noticed that the atmosphere was slightly off. Firstly, mortal Emperor Chu seemed to be extremely discontent with the emperor. Second, fifth Prince Chu Sun, who originally knelt there pleading for forgiveness, heaved a sigh of relief when the mortal Emperor Chu appeared. It was as if he'd seen his savior. However, even then, Duan Lingtian never would have thought that the relationship between the fifth prince and mortal Emperor Chu would be that of father and son. Wouldn't that mean that this fifth prince was born of the adultery between mortal Emperor Chu and the emperor's concubine? The matter seemed to be slightly complicated. You too. The emperor was angered to the point that his pupils constricted, and he pointed out with his finger at mortal Emperor Chu and Chu Sun and was unable to catch his breath. Imperial brother, Sun doesn't know medicine. The poison he infected you with is from a medicinal formula I gave him. Mortal Emperor Chu looked at the emperor with a calm gaze, as if he was saying something of no significance. These years, I've guarded the imperial family and had no other hope besides seeing my only son ascend to the throne. But unfortunately, imperial brother, you're too greedy for power, and you're already past 60 but still unwilling to give up your throne. Only son. What mortal Emperor Chu said caused the emperor's face to go deathly pale. This bastard is born of you, and that by **H? The emperor only felt a gloomy feeling in his chest when he thought about how he'd worn a green hat all these years. Old goat, don't insult my mother. Chu Sun coldly swept the emperor with his gaze. Since it had already come to this, he didn't conceal it anymore. Ha ha, ha 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 ha. The emperor burst out into a loud laugh, laughing madly. Only after a short while did he stop and look at mortal Emperor Chu, then said, in a cold voice, "Fourth Imperial brother, you falling out with me here today because of this bastard ought to not be to simply protect his life, right?" Mortal Emperor Chu deeply glanced at the Emperor. "Imperial brother, I came here today because I hope you can give up the throne to a better successor." Give up the throne? What the mortal Emperor Chu said caused another stir again. Even Duan Ling Tian never thought that this mortal Emperor Chu would be so unscrupulous. "What if I'm unwilling?" the Emperor asked in a low voice, and his eyes were filled with a piercingly cold light. "Imperial brother, you're an intelligent person," mortal Emperor Chu said indifferently, and his calm tone, however, had a coercive meaning mixed within. "What? Fourth Imperial brother wants to force me to abdicate the throne?" The Emperor abruptly started laughing, and the coldness on his face grew stronger as if his face was covered in a layer of ice. "So what if I am?" Mortal Emperor Chu had a carefree expression. He didn't regard the Emperor with respect in the slightest. "Presumptuous." The Emperor's face sank, and he shouted out coldly. Right at this moment, the mortal Emperor paid no attention to the Emperor, as he seemed to have noticed something and looked towards the outside of the throne room. Moreover, at the same time that he noticed, Xiong Quan, who was beside Duan Ling Tian, looked towards the outside as well. Subsequently, the Divine Might Marquis Estate's Senior Marquis and Marquis both looked towards the outside. An unrestrained figure slowly walked in. The figure wore a silk headdress and held a feather fan in his hand. The person was a middle-aged scholar, and he slowly walked in to stand behind the Emperor. The Emperor heaved a sigh of relief when he noticed the arrival of the scholarly middle-aged man. "Dean Sima, those who adjust their actions to the times are wise. Could it be that you think that it is sufficient to rival me merely by yourself?" Mortal Emperor Chu's gaze descended onto the middle-aged scholarly man, and a sense of gloominess was mixed within his voice. "Dean Sima?" Duan Ling Tian's face revealed shock. The middle-aged man that appeared currently was no one else but precisely the teacher of Paladin Academy's Star Mastermind Department, Sima Changfeng. Just now, this mortal Emperor Chu had called Sima Changfeng Dean. Could it be that this teacher Sima of his was the elusive dean of Paladin Academy? If it really was so, then this dean had really concealed himself too deeply. "Your Majesty the mortal Emperor, give up?" Sima Changfeng looked at mortal Emperor Chu and said indifferently, "His Majesty the Emperor is the legitimate ruler from the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial family. If you want to forcefully make him abdicate his throne, then not to mention me, even the Senior Marquis would probably not stand idly by." "Senior Marquis?" Mortal Emperor Chu's gaze descended onto the old man that sat nearby, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. Not to mention the fact that the Senior Marquis is now infected with the poison of the Dark Nether Mink and is unable to utilize his origin energy, even if the Senior Marquis wasn't poisoned. So what? Could it be that you think that you two joining hands would be sufficient to match me? As he spoke up to this point, mortal Emperor Chu's face revealed a sense of arrogance and conceit. "Ha ha ha ha, you Majesty the mortal Emperor, as expected of one who's worthy of being called the rare talent in the martial Tao of the imperial family." The old man who sat nearby couldn't help but start laughing. "Senior Marquis, I hope your Divine Might Marquis Estate won't interfere in today's matter. Otherwise, don't blame this mortal Emperor for showing no mercy." Mortal Emperor Chu looked at the Senior Marquis and spoke with a tone that didn't lack a threatening intent. "Humph." The Senior Marquis hadn't spoken when Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan had already taken a step forward. "Your Majesty the mortal Emperor, the Divine Might Marquis Estate only respects the legitimate ruler from the imperial family. If you really want to force the Emperor to abdicate his throne, then it's committing high treason. I, Nye Yuan, will be the first to stand up and help His Majesty get through the difficulties and kill the traitors." "Good. Divine Might Marquis, it wasn't a waste that I trusted you all these years." Seeing the Divine Might Marquis's attitude, the Emperor couldn't help but emit a gratified smile. "Although I, Duan Ling Tian, am incapable, I'm indebted to His Majesty's favor, and thus am willing to offer my services to His Majesty." Duan Ling Tian stated his position as well. "You're Duan Ling Tian?" Mortal Emperor Chu's gaze descended onto Duan Ling Tian, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. You don't have the qualifications to choose. I won't trouble your majesty the mortal emperor to worry about whether I have the qualifications to choose, Duan Ling Tian said indifferently. Duan Ling Tian, you're presumptuous. Chu Sun's face sank as he shouted in a low voice. Duan Ling Tian looked at Chu Sun and laughed. Fifth prince, oh no, you aren't the fifth prince anymore. You. Chu Sun's face went grim, and his eyes were filled with piercingly cold killing intent. Duan Ling Tian, you'll surely lose today. I'll capture you and send you to my cousin's sister, and let her personally tear you into thousands of pieces. What? Fifth prince, are you so sure that you too will surely win? Duan Ling Tian's eyes narrowed as he lightly smiled. You'll know really soon. After today, I, Chu Sun, will become the emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom. Chu Sun's gaze became filled with fanaticism. It was as if he'd already seen the scene of himself reigning supreme over the lands. Wishful thinking. The emperor sneered. Imperial brother, you'll know very soon if it's wishful thinking. Mortal Emperor Chu's gaze swept past everyone present before descending onto Prime Minister Gu Yuting. Prime Minister Gu, you're wise and astute, so I'll give you two choices. 1. Die with the old goat. 2. Serve my son and assist my son in governing the Crimson Sky Kingdom. When Gu Yuting saw Mortal Emperor Chu coming, he knew that he would have to make a choice. Now he could discern that the emperor's gaze was looking at him as well. For a moment, he was in a difficult position. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Right at this moment, black figures flashed in from outside the throne room one by one and descended behind Mortal Emperor Chu. A total of 8 people. They were all old men who wore black clothes, and each one of them had cold and indifferent gazes. It was precisely Mortal Emperor Chu's Spectre Guard. You Majesty the Mortal Emperor, those thick-head half-step void stage martial artists have already been dealt with. One of the Spectre Guards reported to Mortal Emperor Chu. Prime Minister Gu, what's your choice? Mortal Emperor Chu looked at Gu Yuting and asked once again, with a tone that contained an extra sense of impatience. Gu Yuting didn't hesitate anymore when he saw the Spectre Guards arrive. Your Majesty, I'm sorry, he said to the Emperor, before flying towards Mortal Emperor Chu. His speed was fast, but someone was even faster. Bang! Sima Chanfeng, who was behind the Emperor, raised his hand to condense a palm print from origin energy that carried along a trace of a terrifying aura, and it instantly descended onto Gu Yuting, killing him. Sima Chanfeng, Mortal Emperor Chu's face sank. The white robe on his body fluttered without wind, and his long hair waved about. He was utterly enraged. Whoosh! Sima Chanfeng moved to flash straight towards Mortal Emperor Chu with an imposing manner that could pierce through the sky. Above Sima Chanfeng, 3,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form and moved out with immense force. Second level of the void prying stage. Duan Ling Tian was surprised, as he never thought that the strength of this teacher Sima would be so strong. Humph! Mortal Emperor Chu's face revealed disdain when faced with Sima Chanfeng flashing over. Then his body lightly trembled and 4,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes condensed into form above him. Third level of the void prying stage. Duan Ling Tian's pupils constricted when he saw this scene. Worthy of being publicly acknowledged as the strongest void prying stage powerhouse in the Crimson Sky Kingdom, this Mortal Emperor Chu was actually a third-level void prying stage powerhouse. Dean Sima, this old man will come assist you. The old man that had sat at the side since the beginning revealed his second-level void prying stage cultivation. Father, be careful. Nye Yuan's body moved and entered into the battle. Above him, 2,000 ancient mammoths condensed into form. Obviously, Nye Yuan had already broken through to the first level of the void prying stage. For a time, the earth quaked and the hills swayed within the throne room. The speed at which the 4 void prying stage powerhouses fought it caused one to see things in a blur and be utterly unable to see it clearly. At least Duan Ling Tian couldn't see it clearly in the slightest. The only thing he was able to discern was that even though it was 3 against 1, Mortal Emperor Chu still had the advantage. Senior Marquis, looks like your dark nether minx poison has been cured. Nyeyuan, I really never thought that you would have stepped into the void-prying stage. Mortal Emperor Chu's voice had a sense of astonishment mixed within. The feather fan in Sima Chongfeng's hand flashed out quickly and revealed the strength of a grade 7 spirit weapon. The father and son divine Might Marquis pair took out their grade 7 spirit weapons as well. So what if you use spirit weapons? 3 void-prying martial artists, and only 2 have comprehended force. I'll let all of you experience advanced sword force. A dark blue, 3-foot-long blade appeared in Mortal Emperor Chu's hand. Whoosh! Everywhere the 3-foot-long blade passed, the attacks of Sima Chongfeng and the others were directly disintegrated as easily as breaking dry branches. Everyone was shocked the moment he swung his sword. Advanced sword force! The senior marquis exclaimed in surprise. Then he shouted out explosively, "Retreat!" Instantly, the 3 of them flashed backwards in panic, avoiding Mortal Emperor Chu's sword. They didn't dare go head-on against it. Spectre guards, heed my command. Capture Duanling Tian alive, and kill everyone else without exception. Chu Sun ordered. Instantly, the 8 Spectre guards pounced towards Duanling Tian and the group of embroidered uniform guards under his command. The 8 Spectre guards were 8 half-step void stage powerhouses, and now they seemed like a group of starved wolves pouncing on food as they pounced at Duanling Tian's group. Hemph! A light, cold grunt sounded, and a strand of green sword light flashed out swiftly. Whoosh! Merely a strand of sword light flashed by, and the 8 Spectre guards that rushed over died before they could even carry out their slaughter. In the sky above, 3,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes flashed before disappearing. Besides Duanling Tian and the group of embroidered uniform guards behind him, the gazes of the other people present descended onto Stone Quan, who stood beside Duanling Tian, as they'd never thought that there was actually a void-prying stage powerhouse at Duanling Tian's side. Moreover, it was a second-level void-prying stage powerhouse. 3 second-level void-prying martial artists and a first-level void-prying martial artist? Very good. All of you, come at me together. Mortal Emperor Chu burst into a laugh, and his tone was filled with a domineering sense. I'm more than enough to kill you. Xiong Quan's voice had a trace of calmness mixed within. He walked out in large strides as if he was teleporting and instantly appeared near Mortal Emperor Chu. Just a second-level void-prying martial artist like you? Mortal Emperor Chu sneered, and the dark blue grade 7 spirit sword in his hand flashed out to pierce towards Xiong Quan. The sword gave rise to a burst of deafening and sharp whistling sounds. Relying on the amplification of a grade 7 spirit sword, the 4,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes above Mortal Emperor Chu instantly increased to around 5,100 ancient mammoths. This wasn't all. Along with the addition of a strand of a mysterious and profound aura on his 3-foot-long blade, the ancient mammoth silhouettes on his body increased by another 500 or so. Mortal Emperor Chu, when exerting his full strength, was capable of releasing around 5,600 ancient mammoth silhouettes from drawing upon the energy of heaven and earth. A shocking strength. Besides the spirit weapon, an addition of another strength of over 500 ancient mammoths? The memories of Rebirth Martial Emperor flashed within Duanling Tian's mind. He came to a sudden understanding and knew that Mortal Emperor Chu's addition of another strength of 500 over ancient mammoths was strength that he had gained from the half-step advanced sword force. Force is something that only an existence at the void-prying stage or above is capable of coming into contact with. Among it, elementary comprehension of force provides an addition of the strength of 200 ancient mammoths. Half-step advanced force provides an addition of the strength of 500 ancient mammoths. As for the advanced force, whoosh! Xiong Quan moved as well, whistling out with a sword strike. He was fearless when faced with Mortal Emperor Chu's full force attack, which was combined with the execution of Mortal Emperor Chu's half-step advanced sword force. By means of the amplification from the grade 7 spirit weapon, the 3,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes above Xiong Quan instantly increased to nearly 3,900 ancient mammoths as well. And right at this moment, A strand of aura that was even more mysterious and formidable than the aura on mortal Emperor Chu's sword jumped out of the 3-foot-long blade in Xiong Quan's hand. Instantly, the number of ancient mammoth silhouettes above Xiong Quan increased by an entire 2,000. At full strength, Xiong Quan exploded out with the strength of nearly 5,900 ancient mammoths. Advanced sword force. Mortal Emperor Chu was full of confidence, but when he noticed the terrifying aura on Xiong Quan's sword and saw the nearly 5,900 ancient mammoth silhouettes that dashed out from above Xiong Quan, his face went ghastly white. Meanwhile, Xiong Quan and Mortal Emperor Chu's figures crossed each other. A strand of fresh blood sprayed out. Xiong Quan stood there firmly and wasn't injured in the slightest. Mortal Emperor Chu's chest had been pierced through, and the grade 7 spirit weapon in his hand was even sent flying. Bang! Mortal Emperor Chu's body crashed onto the ground. The strength of nearly 5,900 ancient mammoths that Xiong Quan exerted completely triumphed over the strength of 5,600 ancient mammoths that Mortal Emperor Chu exerted. How could it be possible? Advanced sword force? Mortal Emperor Chu struggled as he stared at Xiong Quan with a face full of disbelief, as he wasn't willing to believe that all that had just happened was real. He considered his half-step advanced sword force to be extremely rare even within 4th level and below void-prying martial artists within the entire Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. But the person before him was only at the 2nd level of the void-prying stage and had already comprehended the true advanced sword force. Half-step advanced force only provided an additional strength of 500 ancient mammoths. However, advanced force provided an additional strength of 2,000 ancient mammoths. The two levels of force were not even remotely on the same level. Mortal Emperor Chu died. He died with a belly full of regret and unwillingness. Imperial Father! Chu Su exclaimed in grief. His pupils sprung wide open and his body lightly trembled. He was unwilling to believe all this was real. At this moment, he felt as if the sky was crumbling. The path before him had become dull and lightless. Only the sound of Chu Sun's grievous exclamation remained within the throne room, as besides Duan Ling Tian, the gazes of everyone else descended onto Xiong Quan. After a long time, May I ask, is Mortal Emperor Chu's sword force not at the level of advanced sword force? Sima Changfeng looked at Xiong Quan. He was rather afraid of this expert who could kill Mortal Emperor Chu with a single sword strike. Of course not. Xiong Quan glanced at Sima Changfeng with a calm gaze and slowly said, his sword force is only at the level of half-step advanced force. Although the half-step advanced force and advanced force are only separated by a single level, the difference is like the difference between heaven and earth. The sword force I executed earlier was precisely the true advanced sword force. Sima Changfeng nodded and was enlightened. The difference was indeed like the difference between heaven and earth. A difference of an entire strength of 1,500 ancient mammoths. This is the strength of the void stage. Although all of this was nothing within the memories of Rebirth Martial Emperor, Duan Ling Tian was still slightly excited in his heart, and a trace of yearning was revealed from his eyes. Imperial Father! That Chu Sun now lay his head on Mortal Emperor Chu's body with a dejected expression. Duan Ling Tian walked over with large strides. He paid no attention to Chu Sun, who retreated out of terror and directly put away the spatial ring and grade 7 spirit weapon on Mortal Emperor Chu's body. Then he put away the spatial rings of the 8 specter guards. After putting away all of the spoils of the battle into his spatial ring, Duan Ling Tian laughed slyly and looked at Sima Changfeng and the Emperor. Teacher Sima, Your Majesty, both of you don't mind that I keep these spoils, right? Sima Changfeng shook his head and angrily said, Kid, you've already put it all away. Would we saying we mind be of any use? Duan Ling Tian laughed embarrassedly. These spoils were all from the contribution of this expert by your side, so it ought to be yours. After the Emperor recovered from his shock, his gaze flickered with a dazzling bright light and didn't leave Xiong Quan's vicinity. Humph! Only after Xiong Quan snorted coldly and swept the Emperor with his cold gaze did the Emperor withdraw his gaze. He was slightly embarrassed. Commander Duan, I'm really envious of you. having such an expert following by your side. The emperor looked at Duan Ling Tian and lightly smiled. Your Majesty is too kind. I wonder, how should we deal with these two people? Duan Ling Tian's gaze descended onto Chu Sun, who had a dejected expression, and the white-browed old man, who had a deathly pale face. Whoosh! At almost the exact moment Duan Ling Tian finished speaking, the emperor moved. In the blink of an eye, Chu Sun and the white-browed old man were killed by the emperor with his own two hands. Duan Ling Tian's pupils constricted, as he never imagined that the emperor was actually in existence at the half-step void stage. Duan Ling Tian's gaze shone when he saw the emperor return to the throne, and his shining gaze descended onto Chu Sun and the white-browed old man's spatial rings. Your Majesty, there? Take them. The emperor shook his head. Commander Duan, are you in need of money? After Duan Ling Tian put away the spatial rings of Chu Sun and the white-browed old man, he nodded and said, Yes, extremely. The emperor nodded, and his gaze flashed before he slowly said, Commander Duan, that today's matter was all thanks to your contribution. If you weren't present, this emperor, might not exist anymore. I'll bestow 10 million gold to you. How about it? 10 million gold? Duan Ling Tian's breathing became hurried. 10 million gold was equivalent to 1 billion silver. Thank you, Your Majesty. Duan Ling Tian hurriedly thanked. Kid, you're really a money grubber. The senior marquis shook his head and laughed. His gaze occasionally flashed past Xiong Quan, as he was extremely surprised that Duan Ling Tian had such a formidable existence by his side. Although Nye Yuan didn't say anything, he was shocked as well. Alas! Suddenly, the emperor sighed. From the incident of today, I've finally realized that it's time I give up the throne. Senior Marquis, Dean Sima, Divine Might Marquis, who do you think I should allow to inherit the command of the imperial family and become the new emperor of the Crimson Sky Kingdom? Your Majesty, this is something that's better to be decided by yourself, Sima Changfeng hurriedly said. It's exactly as Dean Sima says. If Your Majesty is truly unsure of who to give the throne to, then Your Majesty can test the princes. The person that passes the test will inherit command of the imperial family, the senior marquis slowly said. Regardless of who inherits the throne, Nye Yuan will surely be ready to die for him. Nye Yuan stated his position. Divine Might Marquis, I haven't congratulated you for successfully breaking through to the void-prying stage. Alas, I wonder if I will be able to break through to the void-prying stage in my lifetime. After I give up the throne, I should properly study the martial Tao. After the incident today, the emperor seemed as if he had suddenly been enlightened and was able to get over many things. Before long, Duan Ling Tian's group took their leave. Teacher Sima, I never imagined that you'd actually be the dean of Paladin Academy. After leaving the throne room, Duan Ling Tian looked at Sima Changfeng with an emotional expression. As far as he was concerned, Sima Changfeng ought to be the concealed fourth void stage powerhouse within the Crimson Sky Kingdom. As for Divine Might Marquis Nye Yuan, he had only broken through recently. I never would have imagined that you had such a formidable existence by your side. Today, if it wasn't for him, even if I, the senior marquis, and the Divine Might Marquis joined hands, it would still be difficult to subdue mortal Emperor Chu. Sima Changfeng glanced at Xiong Quan, who was beside Duan Ling Tian, and sighed emotionally. Little Tian, he is? Nye Yuan glanced at Xiong Quan and asked Duan Ling Tian curiously. Duan Ling Tian hadn't even spoken when Xiong Quan spoke first. I'm the young master's servant. Servant? Nye Yuan, Sima Changfeng, and the senior marquis were all dumbstruck when they heard what Xiong Quan said. This second-level void-prying stage expert that has comprehended the advanced sword force and was able to defeat an existence at the third stage of the void-prying stage actually called himself the servant of Duan Ling Tian? Has this world gone mad? Even the group of embroidered uniform guards couldn't help but feel ashamed. Although they had experienced how terrifying Xiong Quan was earlier in the fifth prince's estate and knew that Xiong Quan referred to Duan Ling Tian as young master, they never thought that Xiong Quan would be Duan Ling Tian's servant. Is there a need to be so surprised? Duan Ling Tian looked at the expressions of the group of people present and rubbed his nose. This caused them to be speechless. The imperial family finally returned to peace after the death of mortal Emperor Chu. As for the remaining matters, they didn't have anything to do with Duanling Tian. The incident this time was too shocking, so the emperor sealed off the information flow and didn't let the news spread out. The imperial city was peaceful as usual. Since returning from the imperial palace that day, Duanling Tian returned all 12 embroidered uniform guards, including Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang, to the Divine Might Marquis estate. Zhang Qian and Zhao Gang had followed Duanling Tian for such a long time, and Duanling Tian had already taught them everything he could teach them, thus he could be considered to have fulfilled the promise he made to the Divine Might Marquis that day. Half a month later, the emperor summoned Duanling Tian once again. When Duanling Tian saw the large stack of gold bills before him, his eyes shone. These gold bills were all of the 10,000 denomination, a total of 1,000 bills. 10 million gold. Duanling Tian put away all the gold without the slightest bit of hesitation. Then he looked at the emperor. "Thank you, Your Majesty." "Commander Duan, I heard from the Divine Might Marquis that you've returned all 12 of the embroidered uniform guard members to him." "You are?" The emperor looked curiously at Duanling Tian, as he didn't know why Duanling Tian would act in such a way. "Your Majesty, actually, when I asked you to establish the embroidered uniform guard for me that day, I only had the intention of having some fun. Now I've had my fun, so Your Majesty, please disband this organization. Besides that, I actually held back when I gave Your Majesty the poison removal pill that day, and I'm certain in my ability to directly remove Your Majesty's poison." As Duanling Tian spoke, he passed a complete grade 9 spirit cleansing pill to the emperor. After the emperor consumed it and dissolved the medicinal strength of the pill, the emperor noticed that the poison within his body was completely removed, and a shocked expression appeared on his face. The emperor glanced deeply at Duanling Tian. "Commander Duan, looks like you really held back towards me in the past." Duanling Tian laughed embarrassedly. "Why aren't you continuing to hold back now?" The emperor asked curiously. "Your Majesty, there's no point in me holding back any longer. I intend to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom soon and head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom." Duanling Tian shook his head and smiled, and his eyes revealed traces of lights of anticipation. Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom? The emperor was shocked. Then he recovered his composure and nodded. With Commander Duan's natural talent, staying in the Crimson Sky Kingdom is indeed unworthy of your talents. However, I will still maintain the embroidered uniform guard. Once Commander Duan is weary of the outside world, the Crimson Sky Kingdom will always welcome you back. At that time, regardless of who the emperor is, you'll still be the one and only commander of the Crimson Sky Kingdom's embroidered uniform guard. This is my promise to you. Thank you, Your Majesty. Duanling Tian hurriedly thanked the emperor. Besides that, if you have any needs before you leave, you can tell me and I will satisfy your request, the emperor added. Duanling Tian expressed his gratitude once again. Right. The emperor suddenly looked at Duanling Tian, and his gaze turned slightly dubious. Commander Duan, I wonder what you think of my daughter Bai Yao? Duanling Tian lightly smiled and said, Princess Bai Yao is beautiful and charming, like a celestial maiden that has dropped into the mortal world. She is one of the few beauties that I've seen. The emperor glanced deeply at Duanling Tian and asked, Then if I betroth Princess Bai Yao to you, would you agree? Duanling Tian felt stifled, as he never expected the emperor would be so direct. Your Majesty, there's something you don't know. I already have 2 fiancés at home. As for Princess Bai Yao, I don't have that type of feeling towards her at the moment, and it's more of a feeling of friendship. I understand. The emperor nodded. A little while after Duanling Tian left, a beautiful figure arrived at the throne room and looked at the emperor. Imperial father, what did he say? The emperor sighed. Bai Yao, he said he doesn't have that type of feeling towards you for the moment, and it's more of a feeling of friendship. He really said this? The beautiful figure lightly trembled, and within the clear and melodious voice was a sense of bitterness mixed within. After Duanling Tian left the palace, he bought 5 Fergana horses. At noon that day, Duanling Tian, Li Ro, Li Fei, Ku Er, and Xiong Quan each rode a Fergana horse and left the imperial city, heading straight towards the direction of Swallow Mountain County. This time, Duanling Tian intended to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom to head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom and didn't know when he'd be able to return. So Duanling Tian planned to return to visit Fresh Breeze Townley family, which could be considered a homecoming. After that, he'd accompany Li Fei to the Aurora City Li clan to see her grandfather. The Fergana horses only spent 2 months completing a journey that riding a normal horse would require half a year's time to complete. After 2 months, Duanling Tian's group rode on the public road outside of Aurora City, but didn't enter Aurora City and instead continued forward towards Fresh Breeze Town. He wouldn't stay long in Fresh Breeze Town. At most, he would stay a night. Thus, it would be the same if they returned to Aurora City tomorrow. This was also the first time Li Fei had returned to the Fresh Breeze Town with Duanling Tian, and Li Fei's heart was filled with curiosity and yearning towards the place that Duanling Tian grew up in. Fresh Breeze Town was the same Fresh Breeze Town from before. Duanling Tian's group of 5 rode their horses into Fresh Breeze Town, and they attracted the gazes of everyone from everywhere they passed. After all, 5 Fergana horses were too shocking. 5 Fergana horses were equivalent to 50,000 gold, or 5 million silver. This little amount of money was nothing in Duanling Tian's eyes currently, but towards the people of Fresh Breeze Town, it was a sky-high amount. Who's he? The crowd of Fresh Breeze Town residents' hearts were filled with surprise. That seems to be Duanling Tian. Before long, someone recognized Duanling Tian. Even though 3 years had passed and the immaturity from Duanling Tian's face had completely vanished, Duanling Tian's appeared hadn't changed greatly. It's really Duanling Tian. I never expected him to return again. Yeah, the last time he returned, he annihilated the Feng family. This time, he wouldn't think of annihilating the Qin family and allow the Li family to monopolize the town, right? It's possible. The Li family is really lucky to actually have such an extraordinary disciple like Duanling Tian, and he's even gone to Aurora City's Li clan. For some time, the crowd of Fresh Breeze Town residents discussed animatedly. However, they didn't relate Duanling Tian to the Duanling Tian, whose name was spread around and gave rise to much discussion lately. After all, in their opinion, it was considered to be not bad that Duanling Tian was able to go to Aurora City. And they'd never once thought that the Duanling Tian from the Imperial City would be the same Duanling Tian that came from Fresh Breeze Town. The corners of Duanling Tian's mouth twitched when he heard what the Fresh Breeze Town residents said. Annihilate the Qin family? Was he such a savage person in the eyes of these people? Ku-Er and Li Fei, who spurred their horses to ride beside Duanling Tian, had long since covered their mouths and started laughing lightly. Let's go home. Duanling Tian spurred his horse forward, directly towards the Li family estate. The Li family members all came out to greet him when they found out that Duanling Tian had returned. From Patriarch Li Nanfeng to all the elders that stayed within the Li family estate, everyone had come. Patriarch, elders. Duanling Tian greeted the patriarch and the elders. It's good that you're back, come in. Li Nanfeng and the other elders welcomed Duanling Tian in. Along with Duanling Tian's return, the entire Li family estate was decorated with lanterns and decorations. It was as if it was the new year. 5th elder, where's Li Xian? After a catching up for a while, Duanling Tian still hadn't seen the little fatty, and he felt it to be slightly strange. Logically speaking, that little fatty ought to have run over at the first possible moment when he found out he'd returned. 5th elder Li Ting said, with a smile, Li Xian went to the Aurora City Li clan 2 years ago. What? You all didn't come from there? Duanling Tian shook his head and smiled. No. We returned from the Imperial City and directly returned to Fresh Breeze Town. We plan to head to Aurora City tomorrow. You're leaving tomorrow? Li Ting was slightly surprised. Yes. Duanling Tian nodded and lightly smiled. Now that you mention it, I return this time to say my farewells to the patriarch and all the elders. Say your farewells? For a moment, the Li family higher-ups were slightly puzzled. I intend to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom and head to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, Duanling Tian explained. Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. What Duanling Tian said caused the patriarch and the group of elders to be shocked. This kid that started revealing his natural talent 3 years ago was now about to leave the Crimson Sky Kingdom and head to the vast stage called the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdoms. Duan Ling Tian, your current cultivation level. Li Nanfeng looked at Duan Ling Tian and asked, slightly hesitantly. Duan Ling Tian lightly smiled and slowly said, third level of the Origin Core stage. Instantly, the Li family higher-ups present were all dumbstruck, and they only recovered from their shock after a long time. Li Nanfeng didn't know what to say. Then he deeply glanced at Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian, you're the same Duan Ling Tian whose name's been spread and gave rise to much discussion within the Crimson Sky Kingdom? Yes. Duan Ling Tian nodded. A tossed stone raises 1,000 ripples. What Duan Ling Tian said raised a large reaction within the Li family higher-ups, causing them to be stunned once again. The Duan clan's direct descendant disciple. The #1 genius within the Crimson Sky Kingdom's younger generation. The embroidered uniform guards commander. It was actually the youth that left their fresh breeze town. They were all excited in their hearts. In other words, your father is that Duan Rufeng? Li Nanfeng sighed. No wonder I've never heard your mother mention your father. So your father is the peerless genius that was once famous throughout the entire Crimson Sky Kingdom like you are now. However, you're even more abnormal than your father. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and smiled. Then he took out a large stack of silver from his pocket and passed it to Li Nanfeng. Patriarch, there's 10 million silver here. It's a small gift from me to the Li family. Li Nanfeng, however, didn't accept it. Duan Ling Tian, you're going to the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom. You're surely going to enter one of those large sects. The competition within the large sects are extremely intense. Keep this money and buy some medicinal pills to cultivate. Exactly. Yeah, keep it for yourself. Most of the businesses in Fresh Breeze Town is under our Li family, so we don't have a lack of money. The other elders persuaded as well. In the end, Duan Ling Tian was truly helpless and could only put away the money. He could feel that the group of people before him were really thinking of his well-being, and a trace of warmth couldn't help but arise within his heart. That night, Duan Ling Tian still stayed within his own courtyard. There were only 3 rooms within the courtyard. His mother stayed within her own room, and Duan Ling Tian brought Ku Er and Li Fei along to stay in Ku Er's room. As for Xiong Quan, he stayed in Duan Ling Tian's old room.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.